This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, gang? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Conference Finals get going tonight in the East, tomorrow in the West. We will definitely get to that today on the program. We'll also have Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press join us for a little more Jets off-season talk. The latest on the coaching search, potential player moves, and more. What's up with the Bombers? Well, we'll get to that with Darrin Bauming, who, of course, did a little Bonfire post-game with Walby, or a pre-game with Walby, and a post-game for the first time this year after Monday's exhibition opener in Saskatchewan against the Rough Riders. DB's going to lead off today, coming up at the bottom of the hour. We've got a lot more to get to today. The CEBLs open up their season tonight in Saskatchewan. The home opener is on Friday. The Slat man, Joey Slattery, is going to jump on the program. He, of course, is the sideline guy for CEBL broadcast and has also been doing the target score weekly with Taylor Allen from the Winnipeg Free Press. And by the way, we got another record to break now because last night in Calgary, 12,617 fans filled the Saddle Dome for the opening game between the Surge and the Edmonton Rattlers. Everything went great for Calgary except what happened on the court. They got pumped by Edmonton. But you know what that means. We're going to need to get another upper decker at some point and fill that place and break the record again like the Seabears did 3 or 4 times last season. Home opener is sold out on Friday. And we'll have more leading up. Hoping to have Coach Mike Taylor actually on the show a little later on. I'm really looking forward to welcoming on our hometown guy on the DP tour, Aaron Cockerill, who's going to join us from Belgium. He just finished up the Pro-Am. Going to join us today on the show before he plays the final DP event, before getting on the plane on Monday and coming to Toronto to tee it up at Hamilton in the RBC Canadian Open on the PGA Tour for the 3rd consecutive year. So we got a packed show, some hockey, some football, some hoops, some golf. Buckle up. It should be a good one. And, we've got some baseball news to get to right off the bat. Shout out to the Goldeyes. Great 6-1 win in their home opener last night at Shaw Park. Just before we welcome in Michael Remis, a big thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club, Little Brown Jug, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Aikens Lake, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, The Beer Can, and next door on Sherbrooke, the Winnipeg Goldeyes, the Assiniboia Downs, and, of course, Breezy Ben bringing us all of our golf reports this year. We do... also, we'll get into a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Michael Remis in here and get this show on the road. Remo, what's up? How did you spend a rather quiet sports night last night?
Took a nap and then played hockey. That was my night. I kept an eye on Assiniboia Downs, the racetrack. We're going head to head again. You got off to a better start than I did.
Great start.
There's a lot of baseball on, too. A disappointing loss for the Blue Jays. I think they're playing the White Sox. Brutal. It's a gimme. You know the Blue Jays do not have a home run out of the cleanup spot in the lineup this year. And they've played, I don't know, like almost 60 games. Like, isn't that interesting? It's not going well.
It speaks to where the Jays are at right now. And listen, they just can't get on a roll. They had a couple nice wins heading into last night. and against a team that has been the doormat of the major leagues, they get completely shut down. My pal Jake from Coolbet was at the game last night. We were just chatting on the lock shop. He, at least it was Looney Dog night last night, and he was able to crush 4 or 5 dogs at a very reasonable $1 per, because what was happening on the field was not great. That being said, for local baseball fans, it was a great night. The Goldeyes open it up with over 5,000 down at Blue Cross Park and get a big 6-1 win, which is a great segue, Remis, into the announcement we've been waiting to let people know about. The first ever Goldeyes Winnipeg Sports Talk patio party. The date is set. June 18th, Tuesday, June 18th at the park. And we are now officially able to let WSTers get in, book their tickets, and join us. And again, this is the brand new patio that has been built for the 2024 season. Anyone that joined us last year at the game will recall we had a bunch of seats down the left field line. And at the time, you saw them taking out a bunch of the seats underneath Craft Beer Corner. Well, they've completed that. And brand new for 2024, 2 left field patio decks. And we've got one of them. Pub style tables and chairs throughout. It's gonna be awesome. A perfect way for everybody to get together. Conveniently located to Craft Beer Corner, as well as the barbecue place, the pierogi place, the mini donuts, hot dogs, everything else we'll be consuming. And pretty simple. $20 for the ticket, all in. We'll give everybody a new WST koozie, which we're just working on having ready in time for the game. And I know we had such a great response last time. I think this one will be bigger and better, especially as one of the first groups to get in and take advantage of that new patio deck.
Yeah, this sounds super cool. A lot of people asking us, when is Goldeyes night? When are you guys doing this again? Finally put it together here. Has June 18 against Gary. It's now Blue Cross Park, the new scoreboard in action. Can't wait to get a look. And yes, tickets available. I sent them out. If you're on our mailing list, you already received the details. Sign up for that. Link in the chat, link in the description. But they now are at winnipegsportstalk.com. There's a link at the top of that page. The Goldeyes, if you're on mobile, I got to bring up that menu, or winnipegsportstalk.com/shop will take you there. But I think my email, we already got, Eric Jorleifson, the first one to get a ticket. He's in. So nice to see him in chat. So
Way
that's
to
the
go,
first
Eric.
one.
Jumping all over it right off the bat. But yeah, throw that in there. And another great reason to get on the mailing list. You'll get the heads up if you miss a show, or you miss part of a show when we're talking about it. It's all there for you. But yeah, this is going to be awesome. I cannot wait to get out and see you all again. And we like last year, we were talking with Andrew Collier about what we could do, because we had such a fun time with such a great turnout for that first game that we did last season. He said, just wait till next year when those patio decks are in. So we got one booked. We've only got 90 tickets, I believe, for it. So the sooner you get in, the better. And then what'll happen is we'll have the full list of everyone that's purchased tickets. Will Sutton is going to, our good friend Will, shout out to Goldeyes, shout out to their great staff. We'll then send the tickets out to everybody. And then when you come in that night, we will have just a little reception desk, if you will, and everyone will get their wristband for access to the patio deck, and then it's game on to see this new team. And I saw my buddy Mike Wynn, who was at the game last night. I had some stuff going on. I was hoping to get there a little bit into it, but wasn't able to. Said not only is the ballpark looking great with the new scoreboard, but the team is as well. Logan Watkins has done a great job of really getting this team on the field back to, I think, where Goldeyes fans expect it to be. They did have a tough run all on the road to begin the season, but started turning it around with some wins after a few losses to start the season. And I think it's going to be a great, great summer of Goldeyes baseball. Certainly the ballpark's been taken to the next level with the improvements that they've done, the scoreboard, the patio decks, and we're going to get a chance to do it all on the 18th of June. So, gang, do not wait. Get over to winnipegsportstalk.com/store. Make it happen, and we'll see you for what should be a great, great night. Some great food, some great beverages, a great game, and one of the first groups, as they say, to run through the patio for our first ever WST patio party at the ballpark. I cannot wait.
Yeah, Will Sutton saying in chat their wristbands will be the ticket. There will be no ticket sent prior, but yeah, go and get your name on, and we'll send the Goldeyes the list of names. Then you get there. So wristband, that's pretty cool. That's how you know it's an exclusive event, Huss.
For sure.
When there's a wristband, and
I got him. I'm in.
Yeah, and then I see David Asplin in chat saying, "Can I bring my 15-year-old?" I mean, bring anyone.
Absolutely.
Who not?
Derek Schmidt brought a 5-month-old last year to the game, if I'm not mistaken, or it may have even been younger. Derek's child, by the way, has been to more games than 95% of Winnipeg sports fans. I believe they brought her out for a playoff game. Definitely brought her to the ballpark. In fact, I think saying 5 months was more like 5 weeks.
I think it was a premature baby, so I think it was actually negative weeks, technically.
But yeah, no, David, yeah, this is all, I mean, listen, the whole place, you can get a beer wherever you want. I mean, if you want to sit, with kids and have a beer in any section. So, I don't think that there's any issue with that so far. So, for sure, yeah, if you've got some kids that want to come out and hang out with everybody and take in the game, join us with the little patio party. We'll make sure they kind of get up closer, a good spot on a chair. And again, you can take in everything that the ballpark has to offer as well. You don't necessarily need to stay there the entire time, but it should be great. A few little brown jugs. I'm already thinking about the tour of the concessions that we will have that day, Remis, and most of all, just another great chance to get together with all of our crew. We'll put out some invites to a few of our regulars, Ken and Marat, and Rennie. If the guys are available and in town, we'll have them join us as well. Always great to get together with them and a few of our media friends as well, including Mike McIntyre, who's going to be coming up with us in a few minutes. So get to the website right now. Link is in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Get those tickets, gang, and we will see you for our first WST patio party at the Fish game coming up next month on the 18th of June. Well, no hockey last night, Reem, but we're right back at it tonight. And, it was funny seeing that poll that we did yesterday for the Why Not question of the day as to who people were pulling for, Rangers or Panthers. And I think it ended up, 52-48 Rangers-Panthers? A lot of Jets connections on both sides of the hallway for this Eastern Conference Final, and a very split populace of Jet fans as to who they're pulling for.
Yeah, I thought I was taking an early L when I was like, I think people are pulling for the Panthers for Paul Maurice. But yeah, I think it was at 1.52-48. But when I closed it near the end of the show, it was actually like 50-50. So people are torn. Who are you cheering for? Rangers, Panthers. Again, one side, Trouba, Wheeler, who we might see during this playoffs. He's been injured. Jack Roslovic. On the other side, Paul Maurice, Jamie Kompon, Dmitry Kulikov, Kevin Stenlund, who's been a huge part of their fourth line. So I'm pumped for this series. Again, I mean, the NHL playoffs, I'm usually checked out after round one. I mean, round one has kind of been the best round. There's games every night at all times, but you have the 4 best teams remaining. I know Edmonton didn't win the Pacific Division like Vancouver did, but they have Connor McDavid. They have Leon Draisaitl. These guys are putting up a record number of points. So you have 4 excellent teams. I'm very intrigued, and I think you're going to have a very worthy champion here. It's not like some of those years, Huss, where some team just gets hot after a crappy regular season. These are the 4 best teams in the league. There's no doubt about that. So there's going to be a deserved cup champion, and which team is going to outlast all of them, we will have to see. And I'm curious how many goals we're going to see in this East, because I feel like it's going to be not many. The Rangers, very good defensively. I think the Panthers have, they got a lot of offensive talent. Matthew Tkachuk, he's healthy. He was not healthy at the Cup final last year, and Bobrovsky, he's playing really well too. So I think this is going to be a great series in the West one as well for Canada's team, Edmonton Oilers. We're all cheering for Canada's team, right?
I don't know about that. Actually, that's a great why not question of the day for everyone. Are you buying into we need the Cup to come back to Canada, even if that means the Edmonton Oilers are winning the Cup? I mean, some people will say yes. I think there's a lot of people that are still on the no side of things. So yes or no in chat. Do you want Edmonton to be the team that brings the Cup back to Canada? Or would you rather it wait for another year and give the home team a chance to be that team that historically ends the drought since 1993? Why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Let us know in the chat. This game, I mean, you just mentioned, yeah, you're right. This is expected to be a lower scoring series. Total goals in the game tonight over at Coolbet is 5.5. It's 6 in the Edmonton-Dallas game. But this game, Remo, is, and we'll spend a little more time on the lines later on. There's some other great stuff, including this golf tournament that's beginning that we hit on the Lock Shop today. But this game is a straight-up pick'em. Although the Rangers are still a pretty significant underdog at plus 125 for the series, even though they have a home ice. Tell me if that sounds familiar. We said the exact same thing 2 weeks ago when they were getting to take on the Carolina Hurricanes.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, the Rangers are getting kind of overlooked. I mean, they were the President's Trophy winners. Maybe people are buying into the President's Trophy curse. There was some talk about, they're kind of fueled a lot by the power play, which I think in the playoffs is, we've kind of seen special teams be a huge factor, but they have elite goaltending. You got, solid lineup, solid defense. You got Norris, Canada, Adam Fox. So I think Rangers are a good team, but they have been getting overlooked, as you said they were against Carolina. But I think even in hockey pools, I was talking to some people in the pool I was in. Rangers weren't really targeted like some of the other teams. So maybe they're not, even though it's the Rangers, they're not like a sexy pick. But look, it's the 30th anniversary of their last Stanley Cup win in '94. I'm sure the NHL would love to see the New York Rangers in that television market in the Stanley Cup final. But I think Florida, again, they're a solid team as well. They were there last year. But Barkov just ran away with the Selke over the weekend. So I think this, again, very good series coming up, and it is, close to it's close to a pick'em here, as we've said.
Yeah, well, the game is a straight up pick'em tonight.
Yeah.
Minus 108 on either sides. Panthers are like minus 152 for the series, and the Rangers are plus 125. So they do expect the Panthers to win. And I think a lot of that goes into like the books and like the analytic numbers. And I think a lot of that plays into, these models when they're creating who's the favorite and who's going to win more and the deserve to win-o-meter that we talk about, all of those things, which is fine for a large sample. We're talking about a best of 7. To me, I think goaltending is going to be the difference in this series. And I like Igor Shesterkin more than Sergei Bobrovsky. Like, Bob's been great, and Bob's done, he had a real renaissance, if you will, a resurgence last year. Wasn't too long ago where we were talking about that being the worst contract in the league, though. He's making $10 million a year. They forked out big time to get Bob in as a free agent, and they're certainly paying the freight on it. And he's been solid for the last couple seasons. Shesterkin at his best, though, is right there with the likes of Hellebuck and the other elite goaltenders in the National Hockey League. And I think we've seen some of Shesterkin's best right now. So I'm sort of leaning on the Rangers. And I think I have wrapped my head around it. I am cheering for the Rangers. I would like to see the Rangers win. It would be cool to see. Like, I've got no real ill will against Trouba. He did his time here in Winnipeg. We knew why he wanted to leave. He's got to where he wanted to be. His wife's working there in the hospital. They've started charities. He's the captain of the Rangers. And it wasn't like, we can all joke about the letter from his agent about playing the right side, which was absolutely ridiculous. There's no doubt about it. But he ended up signing the contract, came back. He had 1 year left on his deal. The Jets made a trade to move on from him and did what they had to do. It was totally within his rights. Jack Roslovic was another player that, I think maybe wishes he had done a few things differently. He was part of the Patrick Laine trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, going to his hometown of Columbus. Got plenty of opportunity. It wasn't there. And as I said yesterday, I'm not sure there's anybody that benefited more from the trade deadline than Jack Roslovic, who found himself, due to some injuries, getting a chance to play up with the likes of Mika Zibanejad on the top Rangers line, gets a chance to play on the PP at times. And has really made the most of this opportunity. And it's a damn good thing because I believe he's an unrestricted free agent this year. So Roslovic's there. And then, of course, there's Blake Wheeler. And just the fact that Wheeler has worked so hard to come back from that brutal broken leg earlier this season, I'd love to see him get in a game. I mean, to make that comeback all worthwhile. And hey, will he be able to play in the Stanley Cup final? I think for a lot of Jet fans, it would be pretty cool to see Blake, on well into the back nine of his career, get a chance to play for hockey's ultimate prize.
I'm trying to look up that letter for Trouba being the top, wanting to be a top pair right side D. I don't know. You just never have. I don't think you've seen that since or ever, a letter like that put out. So I think, a couple of, there's going to be a former Jets player winning the cup, and I'm sure there are some people who are still fans of them. And
we are big Stenny guys, though. I will say this: I have a big soft spot for Kevin Stenlund, and every time I've watched Florida this year, there's Stenny, number 82, running around, and he established himself as a regular player. Paul Maurice really liked him, can trust him, and had a really good year. So if Florida does get there, I'll be happy for Stenny. I know people are very divided on Maurice. Some people still absolutely love him. Some people feel the shine wore off a little bit with the way that he left. But at the end of the day, it was 50-50. I'm not surprised Jet fans are so split on this. Now let's drop the puck and see what happens when they actually play the games.
Yeah, let's wait and see. And I'm very excited. Matthew Tkachuk versus Jacob Trouba. I mean, I don't know what kind of individual matchup we're looking on. I'm sure we'll see some big hits, maybe some dropping of the gloves. Two great series here. We're gonna have a worthy champion. I think I'm maybe more interested in the West than the East, but one thing that is, tonight's game, I was very surprised, Huss, that tonight's game starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. The game's in New York, and it's starting at 8. It seems like a little late, but don't want to leave out the West Coast. I guess for watching the games, that would be 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, now that there's one game a night, I mean, they want to stick that thing in the sweet spot. And I mean, it's not like a game starting at 8 is so late for the East Coast to be able to see it. But I think it's significantly different having a game starting at 4 p.m. than 5 p.m. in the Pacific. And once again, if there's just one game a night, we in the Central Time Zone revert to having the best time zone for watching sports with the 7 o'clock game. It just doesn't work out that way in the first round of the playoffs when all the Central Division teams are forced to start their games at freaking 9 o'clock because of the double headers.
Yeah, even the New York Rangers have to start a game at 8 local time. I think we just need to accept that the West Coast it's gonna be on super early, no matter what. We can't cater to them anymore.
That's the lifestyle out there.
That's just the lifestyle. Yeah, early sports. It's something that I'm thankful we'll never have to deal with here in the best time zone for sports watching where we get the game at 7.
I honestly never got used to, like, when we would be out in Vancouver for Grey Cup week, a couple times when we were there, back in the station days, the games start so we were in Vancouver and the Jets were, on the East Coast, and the games were starting at 4 p.m. there, which meant that backing it up 3 hours from that, the show was starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time, which was actually great. I do the show from 1 to 3 and then head down to the red card and settle up for a big night of hockey. And it was all done by like 9:30 or 9:45, which was good as well. But as I say, it would be nice to be hosting games. Maybe in the future we'll get to do that again in the third round, back like in 2018. But for right now, we're going to get these normal start times, 7 o'clock. I think it would probably be 7:30. I think the game tomorrow is 7:30 for the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers. And that's the way it'll go for the rest of this week. Listen, Darrin Bauming is going to join us from Bomber practice in just a couple of minutes. One thing that there's a bit of news, as we kind of heard from Elliot Friedman yesterday, the Kings have removed the interim tag and extended Jim Hiller on a multi-year deal to be their new head coach. Hiller, of course, took over after they whacked Todd McClellan, who has been interviewed by the Winnipeg Jets already last season.
Yeah, and Kevin Weeks posting a video as well from the red carpet somewhere. So the coach watch. Yes, Jim Hiller, multi-year deal with the Kings. The teams without a coach now officially: Seattle, Winnipeg, New Jersey, and San Jose. So we're still on coach watch here. Nothing new to report. Scott Arniel remains the favorite to be the next Winnipeg Jets head coach, but another one off the list. And we'll have to wait and see what happens with the other teams. But there's also, the Jets' former coach apparently going to be on Hockey Night in Canada for part of.
That's the big news.
That's the real big.
Get ready, folks, because Bones is going to be entertaining us at the intermissions. And Elliot Friedman mentioned this today. Games 1 and 2 for the Western Conference Final. And it looks like he'll be on with Kevin Bieksa and Luke Gadsdick. And then he'll also be game 2 for the Eastern Conference Final. So we no Bones tonight, but the next 3 days, the man they call Bones. And this has to be somewhat of an audition, I'd imagine. And listen, we know that there could be a job with him consulting. I don't think there's any doubt if he wants to continue to work in the National Hockey League, he will be able to do that. But I am totally here for Bones, the TV guy, to take over as he moves on from coaching into the next stage of his life and his hockey life. And that's pretty much the only thing he hasn't done regularly is be a media guy.
Yeah, he would have a lot of insight on the Dallas Stars, who coached the Stanley Cup Final a couple of years ago. Edmonton, a lot of hockey history, a lot of knowledge up there. So, yeah, I think that he would certainly be a great ad, and I'm sure you'd have a fun time. I've actually really enjoyed the panel and the broadcast this year. They do a nice job. I stick around every game for the post-game show where they go into like Ken and Ivanka's corner, and they're bringing in Luke or Elliot or Kevin Bieksa. So I have actually enjoyed what they've done, and I'll have to tune in to see if Rick Bowness has any tidbits when he's on TV.
How many times do you think Bones mentions pushback over the course of those 3 games in broadcast? Like, will that be one of his go-to phrases when we're talking about the ups and downs of games, or do we just remember that because when we associate playoffs, we associate Bones with the infamous rant after Game 5 a year ago?
Yeah, I don't know, but we'll have to see if he has any catchphrases or anything. I know pushback was mentioned a lot on social media when Vancouver didn't have any for the first, 3 quarters of that game 7. So, it might come up, but look, these are all good teams left. I imagine it'll be tight games, or you want to get that advantage earlier on in the series.
Mike McIntyre, as I mentioned, we're going to get into some more hockey in about, 20 minutes. But we got Darrin Bauming coming up in just a few to join us here on WST. Just before Bauming comes in, huge shout out to our friends over at Rolly's Transfer. So great to have them on board. Rolly's Transfer, the Manitoba moving company, family owned and operated for over 60 years. And with their extensive logistics business, gang, they are not only all over the city every day, but all over southern Manitoba, which means flexible timing and routes and the best prices on your move. If you do have a move coming up, your best bet is to get to Rollies.com, Rollys. And just up at the top right, they've got the request a quote feature. Let them know what you need moved, where you're moving it, and one of the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly, get in touch with you, and get you set up to take the most stress possible out of your move with the Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years. Find out more and request a quote today at Rollies.com. Big weekend coming up over at Consolidated Supply. The gang is ready to go for the Ding-a-Ling It's Spring Sale at their showroom at 1395 Niagara Road East. Thinking about a hot tub? Well, head on down to Consolidated this weekend. 25% off of in-stock hot tubs. Family, friends, and pricing on everything at Consolidated Supply. They've got great deals on both new and used club car golf carts, including some incredible vehicles that frankly barely even look like golf carts, but are on the same technology. And the full line of Crest lithium power tools, which you can now get at Consolidated Supply, including that satellite guided lawnmower that can take care of your entire property while you're chilling, barbecuing, and enjoying a cold one. The Ding-a-Ling It's Spring Sale, Consolidated Supply, Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 4, Sunday, 10 to 2, including 25% off in-stock hot tubs, $13.95 Niagara Road East near the Canadian Mint. See you there. Hey, if you're going to get one of those golf carts or any of the other toys you might have to enjoy your summer, you're going to need batteries for that, and Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery have you covered. You'll be shopping local. You'll be getting the best prices in town, period, and the best service as well, as they will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. 2 locations, Logan Avenue, the new location on Dover Court. But what you do need to do is get to ManitobaBattery.com right now for the latest on the spring sale right now. Boats and so much more available. Best prices in town on your batteries over at Manitoba Battery. And, of course, a big shout-out to our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. Guys, if you need to get a good look, there's one near you right now. 8 locations, in fact, in the city of Winnipeg, including the newest locations on Plessis Road and on Pembina. They've got you covered with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Everything you need to be looking top shelf as we get into spring and summer. Make an appointment today and book your look online at modernmanbarber.com. Give them a follow as well at Modern Man Barbershop. Sorry, let's talk some Bombers right now with the Bomber himself. Darrin Bauming from Bonfire Sports joins us. DB, 1 down and 20 to go before we get to the playoffs, a preseason game, and not quite normal, but frankly, I think for a lot of fans, it made the Bonfire coverage that much more important because with it being available on CFL Plus, a lot of people didn't see the game. But how was it getting back in the lab with Walby and little post-gamer? Football season's back officially.
Yeah, it was great to be on with Walby. He joined me from the dock side, as he so often does in these warm summer or spring months, right? And, enjoying the lake and watching the game out there with his crew of Walbyites, as I like to refer to them. And then, the postgame was a blast, right? Obviously, you can't dig in too much to a preseason football game, but there was lots to talk about and what we liked, what we didn't like, and gave out our Walby's Warrior and Westwood Wide to the right and some of our old TSN segment days. We still do those things, but great to be back talking football, doing the shows, and really, it was nice to have a day off yesterday because training camp is every dang day, no matter what. It's nice to return today, see some of the guys that had missed a few days of practice and didn't play in the game, say like a Dalton Schoen, back on the field working with the ones. Huss, you know me. I wouldn't trade this for the world, man.
We are back. It's going to be a great season. And of course, I'm very much looking forward to Labor Day. Because of course we're going to be jumping on that trip and sort of hosting some of you that joined us at Labor Day. Once information, go to the 1930 Crew on Instagram, on Twitter, and get those seats booked before they fill up and join us for that Labor Day trip. Listen, just before we get to camp today, just thoughts on the preseason opener. I mean, it's game number 1. It was super early. Tons of the regulars did not make the trip. Strevler apparently looked pretty good, though. Certainly good numbers, 7 for 8 and a few nice runs. But once he was done, we got into a bit of a look-see on who's going to be behind Strevler and Zach Collaros on the depth chart at the QB position.
Yeah, pretty polarizing quarterback performances from those that tuned into the post-game show on Bonfire, right? Eric Barriere struggled, plain and simple. Was not accurate, threw the 2 interceptions. To me, looked like to be on the exact same play of, a crossing route for his receiver and trying to find the window between the 2 DBs and just not seeing the linebacker in the under coverage dropping back. And for American quarterbacks, I was talking to a couple people about this today. It's a challenge because they're used to the feel of the game, and that can be peripheral vision and just kind of like what you sense. And suddenly there's a 12th guy on the field where they're used to 11. They might see 2 safeties deep back and be like, okay, there's probably not linebacker under coverage. And in Eric Barriere's case, threw that exact same pass twice and was picked off twice. So forgettable performance for the Blue Bombers' 3rd string hopeful, but also one that he absolutely needs to learn from. In practice today, it was Eric Barriere working with he was the first of those 2 rookie quarterbacks to work in, the quarterback reps and, in the 12-on-12 session and that sort of thing. Strevler looked good. I think for him, it's about reacclimating himself to Canadian football and to, the types of throws he needs to make in the CFL versus the smaller field and the different offenses in the NFL. But I think for him, it's going to be like riding a bike. And as the number 2 quarterback, we know it's Zach Collaros' team and his offense to run. Everything's going to run through him. I think for Chris Strevler, his best contribution to this team isn't the contingency plan at number 2 quarterback. It's let's get him in. Let's get the ball in his hands, put him at tight end, putting at running back, put him at receiver, put him in the wildcat. Just let him run like the bull he is. And I think that's, something Bombers fans maybe don't have to wait too long for, but I don't think they're going to show too much, in the second preseason game. It was Terry Wilson as the rookie quarterback that really impressed me. And for those watching, I don't even know if people saw it, but like late in the game, like in the last minute and a half, Wilson threw a couple absolute darts deep downfield and showed what I've seen in training camp all through May so far, Hustler, and that is great accuracy. I really like what Terry Wilson brings. Of course, it's more than just throwing the football when it comes to how Buck Pierce and the Bombers coaching staff are going to assess these young quarterbacks. But I think Terry Wilson's got a little something. So I think number 3 on the field is somebody to keep an eye on.
Just back to Strevler for a minute.
Yeah.
To me, the most intriguing thing about this upcoming season and the return of Strevler is the fact that while he's been gone, the rules have been changed, and you can have 2 quarterbacks technically on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see much of that with Strevler and Zach Collaros on the field through the regular season? Or might that be something that Buck Pierce does in practice, probably their closed practices, and waits to unleash later on in the season or potentially in the playoffs and not give teams very many ideas as to how that would look when, I would say, inevitably, the Bombers put them both on the field at the same time?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I wouldn't hold your breath, but in football, and especially pro football, there's those deep chapters of the playbook, those pages at the back that, you don't get to too often. Are they going to show that early in the season? I don't think they will, but this is what we do know. Football is about adding little wrinkles, right? And catching your opponent off guard. So you might show X and then throw Y or Z at them, right? There's all these options and different things that they can do. I think getting Chris Streveler on the field as a quarterback at the same time as Zach Collaros, well, first of all, awesome rule that the CFL brought in 2 years ago. I think they're going into the third year of it being legal to have two quarterbacks on the field. But for Winnipeg, and you have someone like Chris Streveler, I don't think, they want him to just be a clipboard carrier and be somebody that's, well, in case we need him, or just for short yardage situations to pick up first downs or to punch it in on the goal line for a touchdown. I think they want to get him involved in a lot of different ways. Why wouldn't you? He can do so many different things. And then, of course, when you expect him to put his shoulder down and, run over a linebacker or absolutely blow up a defensive back that he's way bigger than, he can drop back and throw some darts, right? He's not going to beat anybody with his arm as a traditional drop back quarterback, but he can throw the football effectively. So great weapon for the Blue Bombers to have. For fans, it will happen. I'm just saying, don't hold your breath. There's no reason for them to show too much early, because we know, when does the football matter? It's October and November, but they're probably going to, pepper in some Chris Streveler looks as the season goes on.
Darrin, as far as the rest of the game, I mean, it was funny. We had Dusty on yesterday, and he was talking about what a nightmare it is to be the play-by-play guy for these exhibition games. I mean, you've got one time he said Calgary had 3 guys wearing the same number.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's incredibly challenging, even for people just trying to watch particular position battles and whatnot. But I mean, any other takeaways from the first preseason games based on what you've been looking at in camp as far as guys that have been challenging or in the mix for jobs that maybe did themselves a pretty nice service with the way that they played on Monday afternoon?
Yeah, you always run out of digits in football, right? That's why they don't really retire numbers, or too many of them anyway. They just honor them. But in practice, it's easy because the guys on defense are wearing blue and the guys on offense are wearing white, and the quarterbacks are in gold jerseys. So you can kind of keep it straightened out. And 29 white is a DB, 29 blue is the defensive back versus the running back, that sort of thing. But like in the game, I mean, it was nice to see Tywan Garbett get to the quarterback. He absolutely torched Jamarcus Hardrick's backup at right tackle. Were guys' assignment sharp? Were they doing what they needed to do? Were they making tackles? Were they making catches? Obviously, when Eric Barriere was in at quarterback for Winnipeg, the entire offense struggled, so it's hard to get assessments of all those guys. But Winnipeg has been kind of massaging their roster, putting Pat Neufeld on the retired list, even though he is not retiring at all. He probably will play week 1. Putting Sergio Castillo on the suspended list today as he heads home to Texas to take care of a personal matter. And Mike O'Shea mentioned after practice today that he'll be back this weekend, so no major concerns there. But massaging that roster to allow the team to bring in other guys, hang on to players a little bit longer so they can get more film on them in practice, in games. I'm curious to see what this preseason game in about 9 days, Bombers Stampeders at Princess Auto Stadium, will look like. Will we see some Zach Collaros? Will we see some of these young receivers on the receiving end of QB1 passes? And then defensive backs. Adam Bighill's going to miss week 1 as he's been placed on the 6-game injured list. And O'Shea, not expecting him to miss that much time, but they need some guys that can step in at linebacker, some guys that can step in at defensive back, and most definitely on the D line. So, how will that game look? And again, I think for the coaches, the more time they have, the better that they can feel about those often very difficult decisions they have to make.
Well, and I guess, as we get into the game on the 31st, the final preseason game before the Bullets are live the following week, same day, Canada at Princess Auto Stadium against the Montreal Alouettes to start it off. A couple of significant injuries on the defensive side, and when the guys were put on these lists, I was sort of with you. I mean, they're figuring out how they can keep guys around longer, give them a better look and all that. We get it. But a couple big names out of the defense guaranteed for week 1. And that's going to create a very interesting scenario as to who's stepping up into those spots. And I think we'll get a pretty good idea of that on the 31st.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to know for sure what's happening. So you kind of have to collect as much information as you can for us as, reporters or fans, that sort of thing, because the team's not going to be hardline specific on the situations with guys. But this is what we do know. Adam Bighill is on the 6-game injured list to start the season, so he will miss at least week 1. And Cameron Lawson placed on the 6-game injured list. And for those that aren't familiar with Cameron Lawson, him and Jake Thomas are hugely important Canadian pieces on the Blue Bombers defensive line. Lawson placed on the 6-game injured list today, and O'Shea mentioning that he's probably going to be longer than that 6 games, but does hope for him to come back later this season. So good news.
Did that happen in the game? Because he was a starter.
Yeah, we asked today, and yeah, he was actually injured in Regina in the game. So tough break for him. He is an emerging player in this league. Like, people are going to know Cam Lawson sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little later than we hope with this injury, but could come back this season. I think that's good news. Brandon Alexander, the Blue Bombers starting safety, the veteran, has not practiced at all in training camp so far. Not on any injured list or anything like that, but brings into question what his health situation is. I know he's had a lot of knee issues over the last couple of years, probably not the same physical presence he was a couple years ago when he was given, like Chris Welby would always say, he's giving guys alligator arms, like they're pulling back, kind of afraid for Brandon Alexander coming down, for a home run hit at safety. Offensively, there's 2 players on the injured veteran list. So again, that's that roster massaging that the Blue Bombers are doing. It's Brady Oliveira and Nick Dembski. They have not practiced in training camp either, but that list is there. So teams with guys that might be out sometime that don't necessarily, they want to put them on the 6-game injured list here early in training camp to guarantee miss week 1 and week 2. That's what that list is for. I don't foresee either Nick Dembski or Brady Oliveira having serious injuries. I think those guys are going to be ready for the beginning of the season, if not soon after. And then, as I mentioned, Pat Neufeld on the retired list. He is good to go. Was chatting with him this morning about a whole bunch of stuff. So good to see him in good spirits, and us joking with him. How's retirement? You hitting the golf course? You going to Europe? But he's still in the building, in the facility, and working with the young guys to help them along.
He doesn't get to roll like he is retired while on the retired list, knowing that he's going to be coming off of it relatively soon. How'd things go today? And Dalton Schoen back out there?
Yeah. Schoen was back out there. I actually had a great conversation with Dalton Schoen. That'll be up on Bonfire Sports YouTube right around by the time you guys are done on Winnipeg Sports Talk today. So I encourage people to go check that out. We talked about the Winnipeg Jets and how he went to a couple games this year, learned about hockey, his experience as a young kid in, suburb of Kansas City in Overland Park, Kansas, playing basketball and baseball and football, obviously. And, the type of season he's hoping to have and the type of offense that this is kind of slowly developing into with guys that have really been here a long, long time. Like when you have a Willie Jefferson and a Dietrich Nichols practicing against a Kenny Lawler and a Dalton Schoen and a Nick Dembski and a Zach Collaros every single day, like these are the best players in the league going head to head 3-4 days a week, every week. Iron sharpens iron. And I think for the guys, it's like Dalton Schoen told me today, he's like, yeah, I could play in a preseason game, but I get to go against Dietrich Nichols in practice. Like I'm probably going to get better coverage in practice from Dietrich than I will, in a base defense that the Saskatchewan Roughriders are trying not to show too much in. So really easy guy to talk to, easy guy to like, both for what he does on the field and off the field in Dalton Schoen. So it was a fun one.
Yeah. One other thing that we didn't get really any clarity about in the game is who's going to be returning punts or returning kicks. They tried a whole bunch of guys. I'm sure that's going to be continuing. And to be honest, guys like you that are at practice every day, I think are going to be the ones that really get a chance to kind of see because I mean, there's only going to be a limited amount of kicks before they got to make a decision, like kicks in exhibition games, before they have to make a decision. And what happens in practice and in training camp right now, I think will be very formative into who at least gets the first crack at that job.
Yeah.
DB, before we go, Friday night, Canada Life Center, how are the pipes ready for the Seabears opener?
Doing warm-ups every day. Warm-ups every day, getting ready for that game. The Seabears open their schedule tonight in Saskatchewan against the Rattlers, right? So I'm going to be watching that on CEBL Plus. Probably have the Eastern Conference Final game 1 on another screen. But Friday night, Classified is doing a halftime show and a gig before as well. He'll be sitting courtside. The energy in Canada Life Center for Winnipeg Seabears basketball last season, year 1, was off the charts. Like, it was crazy. Like, to this day, people are like, I've heard so much about this. I got to get to a game this year. I'll say this, buckle up, because the Seabears roster is as good as you could ever have hoped. It's got a ton of really, really talented Winnipeggers on it and really, really talented American players on it as well. They are going to be very, very good in 2024. And I think there's a reason the Seabears reached out to get and did receive the 2025 CEBL Championship Tournament to be here in Winnipeg, because not only has the fan support been great and it's been tons of fun inside the stadium, they've built a team to win and win now. So year 2 and year 3, I think we can expect a lot of W's at the frozen tundra that is Winnipeg Seabears basketball home court.
Yeah, well, we got the Slat Man coming on. We're going to get his thoughts on the upcoming season a little later on today. And we'll look forward to seeing you belting it out from the announcer's position for the first of 10 home games on Friday night. Darrin, always great having you on the program. Thanks so much for doing this. And we'll look forward to that Dalton Schoen interview a little bit later on today after WST up on the Bonfire site.
Appreciate you, man. Have a great one.
Good stuff. There's Darrin Bauming. Bauming doing double duty. Of course, giving you all the Bomber news you need over at Bonfire Sports, and then firing it up with the fans for the sold-out home opener on Friday for the Winnipeg Seabears. Of course, all of our Bomber reports on WST brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Blue and Gold and WST. And, of course, the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium. And, folks, that's where you're going to want to be on Canada Day. If you haven't heard, Canada Day is back. And the biggest and best Canada Day celebration in town is going to be at Princess Auto Stadium, and completely free to Winnipeggers and Manitobans. Bring the entire family down beginning at noon for a local market, food trucks, face painting, storytelling, inflatables, and more. And then the party really gets going at 3 p.m. Main stage performances get going at 3, leading up to Doc Walker and the headliner, the Sam Roberts Band. Again, free admission, fireworks lighting up the city skyline at dusk. So make a plan to join us, Princess Auto, the Bombers, and hopefully the whole freaking city down at the Princess Auto Stadium for Canada Day on July 1st. Pop by and see Princess Auto on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are busy right now because they are the go-to people for fencing and overhead doors and have been the fencing experts in town since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, give them a call. They've got it all: vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, wood fences. Of course, they're the people to talk to about temporary fencing as well for your business. And hey, if it's time to replace your overhead garage door, they've got Winnipeg's largest selection as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call at 452-2700. They'll arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You could also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Crescent off of Kenniston. Guys, if you need to step up your menswear game heading into spring and summer, head on down to F Apparel. You know it well. 190 Smith Street, the number one spot for custom men's clothing in town. Custom suits beginning at just $400. Not to mention chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Due to a 15% discount for wedding parties, so if you're getting married or you're standing up, talk to the guys there about getting a 15% off when you and the gang get your suits at F for the big day. They've also got a great promo on right now for 2024 high school grads. Find out more in person at 190 Smith Street. You can also make an appointment and get more information on everything F has going on at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And just before we bring in Mike McIntyre, big cheers to our friends out at Aikens Lake, finishing up the final preparations to start welcoming guests for the 2024 fishing season. If you are looking for a world-class fly-in fishing getaway where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, including the flight, Aikens Lake is that. And as great as the amazing fishing is, the hospitality of the Aikens team and the Terren family is even better. Go to aikenslake.com for more information on options for both corporate events, friends, family, getting the fellas out just for your annual fishing trip. And, of course, you can also follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and more, Facebook at Aikens Lake to get the sights and sounds. But, the season is filling up right now, so find out about availability today, and maybe we'll see you at Aikens later on this year. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here. Got lots to get to as the intrigue continues to build to find out who our next head coach is here in Winnipeg. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
Huss, doing great, thank you. Fresh off round of golf yesterday at Rossmere, part of the Golf Manitoba official season launch. I had the privilege of playing 18 with Braxton Kuntz, which was nice to see. I mean, I was also in a group with Kenny Wiebe and my sports editor, Jay Bell, but it was nice to see a real display of golfing talent, courtesy of the three-time reigning Manitoba amateur champ who was just throwing darts at the green all day long.
Hey, listen, okay, I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to ask. Unfortunately, wasn't able to join you all yesterday because we had a show.
Yes.
First of all, how much was Ken talking to his ball yesterday? Was he in full mid-season form where he's having a full conversation on just about every hole?
Yeah, he was all over the place. That was not a classic Ken Wiebe. I've played a lot of golf with Kenny over the years. He did not have his A game yesterday, Huss, or his B, or maybe even his C game. Well, put it this way. If not for one dastardly sand trap that took me 3 shots to get out of, I had Kenny in my sights. I nearly beat him. Yeah. So he narrowly took the title over me. We're talking about just team free press. I had introduced we went around the room at the beginning and we all introduced ourselves. I introduced myself as the weak link of Team Winnipeg Free Press. But I almost had the low score of the day between me, Kenny, and Jay. That's a very low bar, however, given how we played. Now, as I say, Braxton, poor guy, had to lug the 3 of us around with him for 4 hours, but he looked to be in fine form, and let's hope that none of what he saw from us will in any way impact the season that he's hoping to have, which includes playing at the U.S. Open qualifier.
I was just going to ask you, when is that? This is really, really cool. And we've got Aaron Cockerill actually joining us later on in the program today from Belgium. He's got one more tournament, and then he'll be teeing it up in the Canadian Open next week. But Braxton Kuntz for Breezy Bend, he is he's down to the final qualifying. When is that, and where is he playing?
It's going to be near Toronto, and it's on June the 3rd. They call it the longest day in golf. It's 36 holes, one day. He's not sure of the size of the field, but basically it's about one spot for every 10 players approximately. So let's just say if there's 100 golfers, there'd be 10 spots up for grabs. And yeah, for him to get to that final qualifier. In fact, Haas, here's a little news for you. There's actually 3 Manitobans that will be in that final qualifier. Austin Debrescu has also made it. He was at another preliminary qualifier, and I just got a text last week from Eric Howarchuk, Dale's son.
Yep.
Now, Eric was on the Canadian tour for a few years. He's now playing the mini tours down in the U.S. He's based out of Arizona, but he is a Winnipegger. He's born here. And Eric has made it through the qualifying stage. So there's 3 Manitobans. Wouldn't that be something? I believe Adam Spears was the last Manitoban, and that would have been in 2007. He had also, I think, made it in 2001. So, I mean, there have been Manitobans that have made it to the U.S. Open, but none for almost a couple decades. And yeah, I mean, Braxton, 3-time reigning amateur champ. They're going to hold the Manitoba Amateur at Rossmere, where we played yesterday. My childhood course, it was a fun round for a lot of reasons yesterday, Huss. I was a member at Rossmere as a teenager. I used to play like 36 a day all summer long. I haven't played Rossmere in a number of years, so it was fun to just get out on the track, kind of a trip down memory lane in a way. And I can tell you my golf game today at the age of 49 is nowhere near where it was like 30 years ago. I didn't come anywhere close to touching my personal record at Rossmere. That just shows you what aging and a lack of playing will do to you.
Well, the fact that Kenny was spraying all over the place. Yeah. I mean, we might need a wellness check on Ken today because Ken, I can have a terrible game, could not care less. Let's get to the 19th hole and have some fun.
He's like Rick Bonus. Yeah, he wears a bad game. And I can tell you, Kenny would have been disappointed and disgusted with his game yesterday.
Will he have pushback the next time he gets out? That is the question. Speaking of that, how about Bones joining the panel for the next 3 nights? Not tonight, but tomorrow. West Final, 1 and 2 of the West Final, game 2 of the East Final. And I have to think before we get to who the next coach of the Winnipeg Jets is going to be, the next job for our former coach could very well be on TV. I'm really excited to see Bones get this opportunity. And listen, as I mentioned earlier on the program, there'll be plenty of jobs out there for Rick if he still wants to stay involved in hockey and consult with the team. But to be honest, I mean, we know the person that Rick Bowness is, his incredible hockey knowledge, his experience, his stories. This is a guy built for the tube.
Yeah, it's going to be must-see TV. Not unlike when Paul Maurice was between jobs. He was a great panelist as well. And how about Pomo? He's a
TV star right now. I mean, he's performance art. Give the guy an Emmy right now for what he's doing after these games.
His line last week where he lit up his team and then he said after the fact that he thought that they needed some profanity in their lives and that he's not very good at much, but bringing profanity is something that he does well. We certainly know that from Paul. I would say he's being humble. He does a lot of things really well, and he's got his Florida Panthers once again in the East Final. See if they can go even further than they did last year, which was coming up just short in the Stanley Cup. What a fascinating Final Four it is, Huss. So the Stanley Cup winner is either going to be a Canadian team for the first time in 30 years, the Dallas Stars, arch rival of the Winnipeg Jets, Paul Maurice, or Blake Wheeler. And now there's a lot more to all of it, of course, than that. But I'm sure some Jets fans these days are probably having a bit, because, I mean, every Jets fan hates the Oilers, right? They hate the Stars. There's a lot of Jets fans who weren't big fans of Paul Maurice by the time he left, or Blake Wheeler. So who do you pick?
Well, it's funny you say that. We've done a couple polls over the last couple days here on this program for the Why Not question of the day. We laid it out, all the Jets ties on both sides for the Rangers and the Panthers yesterday.
Yeah.
The Rangers started out in the lead. It ended up at 50-50.
Coin flip.
And then we said today to everyone, okay, well, the Oilers are the last Canadian team. Do you want them to win and be the team that brings the cup back to Canada? 68% no, 31% yes. And I'm not sure what happened to the other 1%, but more than 2 in 3 saying no, we'll wait on that, and we'll see if the Jets can be the team that can finally bring the cup back to Winnipeg. Just one more thing on Maurice. I'm convinced that he wasn't that upset that they lost Game 5, just so he had another game to do a 10-minute press conference and do his thing right now. He's does not hate the opportunity to talk to the media and do his thing afterwards. Listen, we'll get your thoughts on the playoffs in a minute. Yeah. But let's get to the latest with the Winnipeg Jets. It's seemingly been pretty quiet. I mean, we have heard that they talk with Todd McClellan, is referred to as Elliot Friedman, a very impressive or excellent interview that McClellan had. But I mean, it's been a couple Zoom interviews with a couple of names that, I mean, you would expect them to pick up the phone to. Do we know much else about what's been happening behind the scenes, Mike, right now, as they look to make a decision on whether it's Scott Arniel or there's someone else that they feel is a better fit with this organization moving forward?
Well, I think there is someone else that not necessarily that they feel is a better fit, but that they do want to have a conversation with Huss. And I think that's part of the holdup here. For those wondering who and what I'm talking about, just take a look at the American Hockey League playoffs right now, where, just checking here, the Hershey Bears, they are up 2-0 in their best of 5 Atlantic Division final against the Hartford Wolfpack. That's I believe that's the farm team of the New York Rangers. The Hershey Bears are the farm team of the Washington Capitals. So they're a win away, the Hershey Bears are, from advancing to the East final. And that is that means that if the Jets want to talk to their head coach, and I know a lot of people who've reported on this believe they do, that would be one Todd Nelson. You can understand that, the Washington Capitals are not going to allow their American Hockey League coach to take a timeout during the playoff run to interview for other job openings. So, I mean, I suspect the Jets do want to talk to Todd Nelson. Now, do they want Scott Arniel so much that they're willing to just make that move without talking to Todd Nelson? I don't know. I mean, I think there's a couple things at play here. For one, is Scott Arniel interviewing with any other teams? I can't definitively say that answer, but I suspect probably not. So it's not like there's a race, I guess, like we might have seen with Craig Berube, where we know he did a number of interviews with teams, and obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs, they weren't going to wait around. They felt they had their guy and they moved on it. So if you're the Jets and Scott Arniel is there and he's not going anywhere, that probably buys you some time, because you don't feel like there's another team that might swoop in and grab him. Now, as we sit here today, and the LA Kings just made their coach hire, Jim Hiller, official earlier today. There's 4 teams, right, that need a coach right now. The Jets are one of them. The New Jersey Devils, and of course, they've been linked a lot to Sheldon Keefe. And then you've got the San Jose Sharks and the Seattle Kraken. There's also the Columbus situation. We're not sure what happens there. They got to hire a GM first. Possible there's a vacancy there. But, yeah, I mean, I think the Todd Nelson situation and the fact that the Hershey Bears are still playing, and they might still be playing for a few more weeks, that could put this all on the back burner, because it sounds like he's a guy the Jets want to talk to. Does that mean he ultimately gets the job? No. Is it possible that again, if Scott Arniel gets the job, they still have an associate position that now opens up. They still will have to make other hires. We don't know exactly what's happening with the rest of the coaching staff at this point. So, yeah, there's a lot on the go here, but I do think it's a bit of hurry up and wait, just because of the Todd Nelson factor and what's going on with the Hershey Bears. So I guess if you're a Jets fan and you'd like some quick resolution, you should be hoping that the Bears suddenly go south in terms of their play and they get knocked out. But if they're around in the, and ultimately make it, and they were the favorite, if they go all the way to the Calder Cup Finals, like, we could be talking another 3, maybe even 4 weeks here, which would take us, now getting close to the draft. Is it imperative the Jets have a coach in place by the draft? I don't think so. I mean, the coach doesn't have a whole lot of say in the players that are being drafted that may have an impact years down the road. So I don't know that there's any kind of real deadline here at play for the Jets. Obviously, you'd like to have that settled, because if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you have a bunch of other things you got to get around to as well. Is it possible that he parks the coach search for a bit as he waits for, this maybe final candidate to emerge and starts dealing with some player issues? We just saw a trade happen yesterday, a reminder that those can happen at this time of year. We'll see how the next few weeks play out. But yeah, you do get the sense that nothing is imminent when it comes to the Jets and their head coach position.
Mike, I was thinking, like, Hershey's playing tonight. They're up 2-0. They could end this series.
Yeah.
Do we know, is there the possibility that they speak with it? Like, if they were able to win this game tonight and they've got a little bit of time off before beginning the next series, is there a possibility that those conversations could happen while Hershey's in the playoffs if they've got time away?
I mean, that certainly has happened. I can think of other examples in other years where that has happened. Now, we know the Jets have already done some interviews via Zoom. Could you have an initial conversation where it's not as involved as, flying a guy in? Or maybe you fly out to him, right? If you like the guy enough, maybe you go to him rather than disrupt his whole life at this point. It's interesting, though, Huss, because the Cleveland Monsters, they are on the verge of a sweep as well. And that would be, I believe it would be Hershey and Cleveland matching up. I stand to be corrected on that, but I do think that's how the divisions align here. So it's possible that Hershey's next series could be starting fairly quickly if their next opponent is already available. Coachella Valley, they've already won. So the only other series is Milwaukee Grand Rapids. That's 1-1. They're going to play tonight as well. Friday would be the earliest that could wrap up. But to your point, it sounds like the East and West finals could be starting as early as this weekend. So it doesn't necessarily give a huge window. But yeah, I mean, whether it was a Zoom interview, whether it was Kevin Cheveldayoff flying out to Hershey to have an in-person meeting, I know there have been times when organizations have absolutely allowed that. It would seem like if you're going to do it, between series rather than during a series would be the time to do it, especially if you have a little bit of time. So yeah, I wouldn't totally discount that situation for sure.
I would assume that during a series would be out of the question. It would just be a matter of, if they sweep and there's going to be a couple days where the team's away and they're waiting to find out who they play, might they be able to get in and do that? Hey, speaking of those Zoom interviews, are these legit interviews? I mean, or is this just sort of
due diligence?
I guess due diligence at some point. I mean, to me, if you're listen, I have a hard time imagining they're going to be hiring a coach without spending some serious quality time face to face in front of the individual.
Agreed.
Despite how comfortable everyone is at doing Zoom stuff post pandemic. But how would you categorize just the conversation that the Jets have had with some of these other players that, now one is the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs and Craig Berube, as well as Todd McLellan?
Yeah, I had some media colleagues laughing when it came out that Craig Berube was doing his chat via Zoom. I hearken back to the day when, during the pandemic, when we had to do all our interviews with players via Zoom, and you'd have like Scott Brown on as the moderator, and he'd tell you at the beginning, all right, please use the raise hand function if you have a question. I jokingly said, is one of the PR guys on the call with Berube telling him at the beginning, okay, Craig, please use the raise hand function if you have a question for Kevin. Please limit it to one question and a follow-up.
You might get a little more than that, I'm sure.
I would think so, yeah. But no, you're right. It doesn't seem like, and certainly with Craig Berube, I don't think the Jets ever came real close to getting Craig Berube. I don't think, clearly the Maple Leafs had an eye on him from the start. And I do think it was way more along the lines of due diligence, which isn't surprising, going back to 2 summers ago when the search for, Paul Maurice / Dave Lowry's replacement was on. We heard Kevin Cheveldayoff on the day that they announced Rick Bowness as the successor. after, of course, they had tried to woo Barry Trotz without success. We heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff that he really valued the ability to do something that the organization hadn't done in a long time, which was pick the brains of other coaching candidates. And that doesn't mean that those were candidates who were all in the, a finalist for the job, but there was some real value to kind of hear other ideas, other philosophies, other viewpoints on how, other coaches view the Jets from an outside perspective. So I'm not surprised that they would be going down that road again. And yeah, when I hear that interviews are happening via Zoom, maybe it's just an initial icebreaker that leads to something more. But that does not seem like, even in the year 2024, like the conventional way to go about it. If you were really serious about getting down to the brass tacks, as the saying goes, and hashing out a deal, I think you'd be doing that in person. So, I think that that's more just the Jets doing their homework, doing their research. It would be interesting at the end of the day to find out how many guys they've actually interviewed in person and how that ultimately plays out.
If the Jets went a different direction than Scott Arniel,
yeah,
do you think he's with the club next year? I mean, he's a guy that has been, he's worked for a lot of really established head coaches before, Lindy Ruff, Peter Laviolette. He came here because it was an associate coach. It was an upward move, I think, with the thought that this is his best track and opportunity, potentially getting another chance at a head coach. If they did go a different direction, and I don't think that's the likely result, but if they did, what do you think happens to Arnie?
I do think he's probably back, Huss, for a couple of reasons. For one, I think at this stage, where would he, if he's the one that decides, okay, the writing's on the wall, I'm never going to be a head coach here in Winnipeg, so I want to go somewhere else. Well, he's an associate coach. It's a pretty good position he still has with a pretty good organization that, again, just finished 4th overall in the standings. If you're Scott Arniel and all the connections to Winnipeg, it would sting, no question about it. But I don't know, what other opportunity would be there for you, at least immediately right now, that would be better than the situation you're currently in. And then if you're the Jets, I guess the Jets could decide if they went in another direction, and maybe the person, whatever direction that is, that person has their own ideas on rounding out a coaching staff. I guess you could clean house in that sense. I just think, going back to, something I long believed here, which is, we know there's a lot of loyalty with True North. They like stability. And they've brought stability back to this organization. The playoff result aside, there was a lot of really good things accomplished with the coaching staff that they had. Now, Rick Bowness is not going to be back, but I do think the idea of having some continuity from last season to next season, that there's and that's why I believe Scott Arniel is probably the front runner. If they were to bring in another coach, I do think they'd still very much value what Scott Arniel did last year and what he could continue to do in the role that he has as an associate. And again, I go back to something I've thrown out in the past. It also wouldn't shock me if Scott Arniel ultimately gets the job, but if another really valued candidate is not brought in to kind of be his right-hand man, not unlike the way Arniel was brought in, to sort of be an heir apparent, it looked like, to Rick Bowness. Maybe it is a guy like Todd Nelson, and I don't know if that would be something that would interest him. Is he interested in being an associate at the NHL level to start? Or would he prefer to just stay in the A as his own man? I don't know. What about a guy like Woodcroft, like Todd McClellan, like some of these experienced coaches that we know their names are out there? We know the Jets have had conversations. Would there be value in them being an associate to Scott Arniel so that there's another experienced voice that he's able to lean on? It's an interesting question. I do think, going back to your original query, though, I do expect Scott Arniel, one way or the other, will be part of this coaching staff next year.
Mike, and this is something that I think we'll talk a lot more in the next month about as we get closer to the draft and, of course, free agency. But as of right now, post-May long weekend, before we get into June, when you look at the Jets roster, knowing what they did last year, but, with contracts up, with so many forwards signed already, new deals being needed for RFAs in Cole Perfetti and David Gustafson, the needs on the blue line. How different do you think this roster looks when we get to September? I mean, the name we've heard a lot about is Nikolai Ehlers, and there's a big question as to, whether he re-signs, is he traded, with 1 year left on his deal. So I mean, you can obviously touch on Nick, but beyond Nick, how much roster massaging do you think Kevin Cheveldayoff does, considering the season that they had, but also, knowing that the year after, a bunch of Winnipeg Jets are off the books on both forward and defense?
Yeah, I don't expect a summer of dramatic change. I mean, certainly I could be proven wrong. And, while it wouldn't surprise me to see Nikolai Ehlers shopped and perhaps moved, and that in and of itself would be a significant change, obviously, given that he's a drafted and developed homegrown talent. And we know what the roster looked like at the end of the season, obviously with Monahan and Toffoli, who were added at the trade deadline, Colin Miller as well. I don't expect Tyler Toffoli back. Sean Monahan, I'm kind of maybe more 50-50 on, because while I think that he would certainly add or addresses an area that the Jets continue to have a need at, if not him, then who? There would still be a spot there that you need to hopefully fill as a second line center. So, but no, I don't think, like, looking back at a year ago and think of all the uncertainty, right? We were talking about, obviously, Hellebuck, Scheifele, talk of them being moved with their status. Blake Wheeler was still on the books. Pierre-Luc Dubois, we know, didn't want to be here. Those were 4 absolute cornerstone players. And when the dust settled, 2 of those 4 were gone, and the other 2 had signed long-term extensions. To me, and if we're talking about like 4 pieces, I don't anticipate, other than maybe an Ehlers, and I'm curious to see what they potentially try to do on the blue line, whether it's with a Schmidt or a Pionk, and obviously we know Dylan and DeMello and their UFA status. There are certainly question marks, but I don't expect that this is going to be a summer where they blow the roster up, because I don't think they feel they need to, given what they accomplished in the regular season. I think there's always danger in maybe ignoring the big picture for the small one. And yes, the small picture, that's the more important one, right? How you perform in the playoffs. And that certainly left a mark. But I think over an 82-game stretch, the Jets, they showed us who they can be. And I do get the sense, certainly from Garbage Bag Day and the tone of a lot of those interviews, including with Kevin Cheveldayoff, there's an internal belief that kind of what doesn't kill you might ultimately make you stronger, as the saying goes. And that, some of those battle scars, some of those wounds that the Jets just suffered in the playoffs, there's a hope that will cause a lot of reflection, a lot of soul searching, and ultimately make this group a stronger one. So I'm not saying they're going to run the whole group back. I don't think they can, certainly with cap issues and whatnot, and certain guys needing new deals. But I do expect that, come training camp, the roster that starts opening day is going to look quite a bit similar to the one that we saw this past season.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if Ehlers is moved, I mean, what comes back is going to be
for sure
very interesting.
There'll be a trickle down potentially.
Well, and it could be, taking from the forward side of things and adding to the blue line, which does get me thinking about the futures of Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon. Just before we go, I mean, if you had to bet right now, are both of them back? Are neither of them back? And if only one is back, who is it?
I would certainly lean more towards one of them back. all things being equal, 0, 1, or 2, I would certainly be putting my money on 1. And that would be Brendan Dillon. And I know, certainly there's a feeling that maybe that ship has sailed. I don't believe it has. No, there has not been progress on that front. We certainly heard Brendan Dillon himself talk at exit day that there was some frustration that he didn't have a deal, but there's also a willingness and an openness to work with the Jets. And it's not all about the money or the term. It's about a fit. And I think Brendan Dillon recognizes there's a really good fit here. I'd be stunned if the Jets don't recognize that there's a really good fit with Brendan Dillon. And so if I had to, to back up my belief that one of the two is more likely than 0 or 2 of the two, I would certainly lean heavier on it being Brendan Dillon because I think Dylan DeMello, he might be looking at a little more term, maybe a little bigger salary. And while that would certainly create a big vacancy on the right side, a spot that the Jets aren't exactly flush at right now, they got Elias Salomonson certainly in the pipeline. That's where, going back to what you just said, Huss, that's where the Nikolai Ehlers situation to me becomes very interesting. We don't know what other GMs might be willing to offer. I'll just say this to kind of leave you. I'm really interested, and I think there's a lot of reason to keep an eye on the Carolina Hurricanes this summer. There's previously been mutual interest between the Jets and the Hurricanes. Carolina, you talk about a team that is absolutely stinging after suffering yet another playoff heartache. They loaded up. They brought in Kuznetsov, obviously Gensel. There's feeling that they're unlikely to bring either of those two guys back on as UFAs. Is Nikolai Ehlers a guy that if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, you're eyeing? I wouldn't see why not. What do the Carolina Hurricanes have a surplus of? They've got some really good quality D-men. And so, if I had to kind of handicap a team that might be worth keeping an eye on here as we progress towards during the offseason, Carolina is a team that intrigues me for a lot of reasons.
Well, the thing about Carolina, when you look at the blue line, is that nobody's got any years on their deals. Like Chatfield, Tony D, Brett Pesce, Brady Shea, all UFAs right now.
Yeah.
And even if you're looking at a Dmitry Orlov, a Jacob Slavin, if they were willing to trade those guys, there's only 1 year left on those deals as well. And I do just think about Winnipeg's predicament and their history of trading players with 1 year before free agency, that they'll be looking for a little bit more certainty as far as team control, whether it be a player on an RFA deal or more. So I'm sort of with you. If anything, maybe that's a spot where the Winnipeg Jets look at a couple of the guys that are coming off the books in Carolina, going to the market, and maybe try to add this way. Well, certainly we'll have plenty of things to continue to gab on as we get closer to some clarity on the head coach, and then what should be a real exciting few weeks leading up to the draft in Vegas. Cannot wait for that. Mike, always great having you on the program. We'll look forward to seeing you very soon. And by the way, check your calendar right now.
Yep.
Cordial invitation to join us for the first ever WST patio party at the Goldeyes game on Tuesday, June 18th right now. So
I will be there.
You
book it.
Perfect. So folks, get your tickets. You'll be able to join us and Mike, as well as a few of our other regulars, which should be a lot of fun. Mike, thanks for doing this.
I'll see if I can sneak Piper in too. Probably not though. I don't think that's not Bark at the Park Day.
No, but that being said, maybe some exceptions could be made. You never know.
He's my emotional support dog.
You got it. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Right on. Take care.
All right, there is Mike McIntyre. Great stuff from Mike. Fun little golf chat as well. And we're going to have another one coming up with Aaron Cockerill of Manitoba. We're going to catch up with him in Belgium in just a couple of minutes. We talked a lot about the hockey. Tonight's a great night to go for wing night down at Next Door. at 116 Sherbrooke, right connected to Good Neighbor Brewing. Of course, it's Wingy Wednesday, every Wednesday at Next Door. Their wings are unbelievable. It's, of course, just a cool neighborhood restaurant in the heart of West Broadway where they've teamed up with the guys behind Cosmos and Hoagie Boys. Now, for their Wingy Wednesday, a pound of naked wings for $15, but the kicker is they have the sauce cart where you choose your own sauces, mix and match and pour as much as you want from over 14 house-made sauces. The new one this week is the Maui Wowie, a saucy, savory soy ginger scallion mix. I tried the Maui Wowie last week. The wings were amazing. That sauce was good. I still have more to try, though, which you'll look forward to do that. But with the PWHL final underway, the women behind Good Neighbor and Next Door, big supporters, former hockey players themselves. They've been playing the games on with sound in the bar. And this Friday, for game number 3, is that watch party they're putting on. Our good friend Liz Hood is going to be hosting it. They've got some great prizes. So if you're a supporter of women's hockey, you want to get down, have some great food and drinks, and watch the game with some other like-minded people, make a point to getting to Next Door on Friday for the game. Minnesota, we thought they might be able to hand out the cup on Friday. Not the case. Minnesota tied it up last night. So it's 1-1. A crucial game 3 coming up from the Twin Cities on Friday. Again, join Liz down at Next Door, 116 Sherbrooke, Friday night for that. Royal Sports is ready for the weekend, and it is tent sale time at Royal. The world-famous Royal Sports tent sales, which I'm sure you have seen before. Thousands, literally thousands of pieces of merch, thousands of pairs of shoes, licensed merchandise, and more. All 50% off or more, with lots of shoes starting at $25, if you can believe it. It's all going to be under the tent on Saturday and Sunday. So make plans to get down to Royal Sports for the best deals you'll find all year. 750 Pembina Highway. In the meantime, all the spring stocks coming in. They're loaded with bikes, soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running, you name it. If it's summertime activities, Royal has it. And then check out all the great deals at the world-famous tent sale on Saturday. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for info on the sale, as well as the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Well, we're back at it with the NHL tonight, which is great because we can get back to Boston Pizza. Take advantage of their new playoff menu with the wing flights, the Sicilian square footer pizza, and of course, the jalapeno popper dip. And you're going to have a chance to get one of your last entries in for that grand prize trip to the Stanley Cup Final. Now, that trip is going to be given away next Monday. I am hosting the giveaway at Boston Pizza City Place. So these next couple days, make a point of getting down to your local Boston Pizza, trying to get in that grand prize draw, and maybe, just maybe, on the reverse draw at the end of the game, you'll be the last person standing and heading to the Stanley Cup Final. Huge thanks to Boston Pizza for their support of WST. And if you can't make it out tonight for the game at your playoff headquarters, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. Well, our friends at Breezy Bend have been great supporters of ours. When we talk golf, we do it for Breezy Bend. They'll be looking to get out there again on the weekend. Course is in great shape. If you want more information on maybe a permanent golfing home in the city for you and your family at one of Winnipeg and Manitoba's top private courses, Breezy is the spot. You can find out more online at breezybend.ca. But for a very special kind of breezy golf report, we get ready for next week's Canadian Open with the only Manitoban on the DP World Tour. Let's head out to Belgium before this week's event on the tour and bring in Manitoba's Aaron Cockerill to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Gracie, what's going on? It's great to have you back on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to check in and catch up on some things from home.
It's been a minute. When was the last time you were in Winnipeg?
January 2nd. We left January 3rd. Been in good weather ever since, so honestly, you can't complain. And when I come home, I'm looking forward to golf being in the full swing of things here in a few weeks.
Yeah, you time things out very well with your time away from home, and of course here. Listen, just before we talk about the golf, you of course welcomed a new member of the family in just over a year ago. What's it been like traveling the world with the toddler over the course of the last 16 months?
Yeah, she's been to more countries by the time she's 16 months than I had by the time I was almost 30. Sometimes it's challenging, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of memories for mom and dad. I don't know if she'll remember everything, obviously not, but it's been super fun for us. We got photos, of her beside all these monuments, and it's been a ton of fun.
You really, I was just going through the results of where you've played this year. And, you mentioned your 16-month-old. I mean, this game and playing on the DP World Tour with where you're at right now has really taken you all around the world. Give our listeners a little scope of the amount of mileage and stamps on that passport.
Yeah, well, I needed a new passport 2 years ago because I ran out of pages, and I'm almost out again. So, yeah, I mean, it used to be called the European Tour, but honestly, that's at most half of our schedule. A lot in the Middle East, a lot in Asia, a lot in Africa. I think out of my whole season, out of say 25 events, I might play 10 to 12 in Europe. The rest is elsewhere.
So tons in the Middle East, and I think that's a common theme with a lot of things in golf right now. But back in Belgium, you've actually taken a little bit of time off. I guess your last run out was you were in Singapore, and then India, and then China. But a great opportunity to play this week because you're coming back home for a pretty big one with another opportunity to tee it up on the PGA Tour in your home country.
Yeah. This week is nice. It's a good course fit for me, but I'm using it almost as a little bit of preparation. I'm very excited for next week. For me, I haven't been able to play in the majors, so next week is almost like a major for me. Very excited to play Canadian Open next week, and I like where my game's at. I've had a lot of time off, like you said, a lot of practice, work on things that I kind of wanted to iron out some kinks, and feeling pretty good and excited for this next little stretch here.
Over the last couple of years, as we followed your career, you got a chance to tee it up on some DP events, and then played well enough to actually get a card. And then it seems like you've taken it to another level this year, especially with that great start. Tell us about the season that you've had so far on the DP.
Yeah, I had a really good start to the year. We do a wraparound season, so we have some events in December that are part of this year. So kicked it off with, just like a bunch of top 25s, which is pretty solid golf. And in Dubai, which is one of our biggest events of the year, Rolex Series event, I finished 4th to start the year in January. I added another 6th after that in the Middle East in Bahrain. And yeah, I've cooled off a little bit since then, but it's been a very, very consistent, steady, good start to the season.
When you come out and kind of get to a place that you haven't been before, and along with it comes a big check, you're a professional golfer. Like, how does that potentially change, your outlook on the rest of the season? Did you readjust some of the goals as far as what's possible when you start like that?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to, I guess. Just the whole year now, I've been pretty high up on the order of merit. So whatever you were maybe thinking at the start of the year, maybe things might change, maybe not. For me now, a PGA Tour card is something that's within the possibility of a top 10 guy at the end of the season who doesn't already have a card. So that's kind of where my focus is at now.
Aaron Cockerill's with us from Belgium, getting ready for one final event in the DP Tour, and then next week teeing it up in Hamilton at the RBC Canadian Open. Listen, I mean, it's hard to talk about professional golf right now without talking about, just how it's affected every different level. We know at the PGA Tour, we know at LIV. How different is the DP Tour this year than it was a couple years ago? And I'm just interested in your thoughts on, because I imagine you would have played with some LIV players at times this year. It's a little different from the DP Tour as to how the PGA Tour has handled it.
Yeah. I mean, I've played over here for 5 years now, so I've kind of was there before it, during, after. I'm a member of the board now as well from the player side, and like I was saying earlier, if the guys from Live have paid their fines and they haven't resigned their membership, they can play in our events. So especially it seems like a lot of the guys are not Americans, South Africans, guys from Europe who have gone to Live. So we have a lot of them who seem to play. It's strange. But if everyone's coming together, it seems like, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Who knows? Yeah, it's a very, very weird time in golf right now.
I mean, you mentioned you were on the board. How controversial is that, the way things are? I mean, are some players totally cool with it and others that, aren't too pleased?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of opinions. Yeah, you appreciate for guys, say a CEO or somebody of our tour, how many varying opinions and guys are in different positions in their career and their lives. There's guys who are from different parts of the world, and you're not going to please everybody. That's one thing that's for sure. Yeah, it's been very interesting to be in that position and hear the different opinions.
Like, how has it affected a player and the rank and file on the DP tour? Because again, it's a very different situation than it is here in North America. We kind of know where things are at, but there's been, I've read a lot about, the fact that this tour is different, and it's been affected maybe more than any in the world based on, the loss of some players that have gone to Live as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're to say rank and file, I think it's almost been a benefit. Maybe, 15, 20 Live guys who have played here in the past are not here, and maybe the competition isn't as strong, and we're playing for a decent amount of money still. And with the PGA Tour cards on the line, and there's still spots in the majors and stuff. I mean, I think it's maybe been a positive effect. Maybe not for golf fans, but for players, it potentially has been a positive thing.
You mentioned, Aaron, potential PGA Tour card. I mean, that's one of the other things that's changed, and there is, conceivably a path for you to, to get that card if you can. Fill us in on, when you tee off at the beginning of the year, what is at the end of the road if you get to certain levels, as well as how one would potentially at some point tee it up in the majors?
I mean, if you're starting at the lowest hanging fruit, the top 110 guys on our tour keep their card. And then for our playoffs, the first event would be the top 70. The second event would be the top 50. And then at the end of the year, the top 10 guys who don't already have status on the PGA Tour will get a PGA Tour card for the following season. And tied in with all that world ranking, although that is under a lot of scrutiny as well right now. Generally, top 100 is probably guys who are going to be qualifying for majors. And with the points that we have tied in each week, that will, boost your ranking depending on how you play.
And then, of course, the potential PGA Tour card, as you mentioned. I mean, listen, you won over 350,000 pounds in one tournament, but how life-changing or game-changing would a PGA Tour card be for a player that's done very well in the DP? I mean, is there a huge difference and I guess the level of opportunity goes up even more if you were able to tee it up on this side of the pond?
Yeah, I think there's no denying that there's more opportunity there. And as someone who's originally from Canada, that would be a lot easier of a transition as well. I know some of the guys from Europe that I've spoken to in the past honestly didn't like going over to the PGA Tour. There is a lot of perks to being over here. We go weeks to weeks where you go from London to Paris to Rome to all these amazing, historic events and cities. So there's a lot of cool things as being a part of the DP World Tour, and I've loved it. But yeah, being a Canadian and being able to play on the PGA Tour, the best tour in the world, would be a very great opportunity.
Are there? I mean, I'm always looking at your, just to see how you're doing for tournaments, and I don't see a lot of Canadian flags out there. Are you the only one, or are there other Canadian guys that you tee it up with?
No, I'm the only one. I'm still waiting for some other Canadian friends to talk hockey with over here, but I always keep an eye on Q schools to see if anyone's gotten through, and nobody's cracked through the last few years.
So who do you hang out with? I guess right now your wife and your 16-year-old most of the time, but do you have a core group of dudes that you've sort of become close to over your time on the tour?
Yeah, I'd say I have like 3 pretty close pals. American guy, a couple English guys. Generally, everyone kind of runs in whatever language they speak. So you'll hear Spanish guys gibbering in Spanish very loud, and the French guys, and so forth.
Sounds like it sounds like an NHL locker room, depending on where everybody's from. Aaron Cockerill's with us. What's a week like on tour for you? So when this tournament happens Thursday through Sunday as normal 72 hole events, when do you get there to the next city? And I mean, just including everything you're doing with the family, like what is the week like as you prepare to go to work Thursday morning?
Generally, Monday is your travel day. Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be practice days or pro-am. So I played a 9-hole practice round Tuesday, and I was in a 9-hole pro-am today. And then the tournament runs from Thursday to Sunday. And Monday you're out of town and probably on to the next one, and you do it all over again. I think everyone's different, but for me, I've now played out here for a while, and I've played a lot of the golf courses before, which is very helpful. So I know the place, and I don't feel like I'm trying to cram as much in, like you're trying to cram an exam or something like that before Thursday. I have a pretty good idea. The weeks, they go by pretty quick.
How much time do you spend between, getting out to actually play holes on the golf course? And then when do you find time to practice and just work on the putting and probably a few calls with the coach?
Yeah, that's majority of my Monday to Wednesday, I suppose. Once Thursday comes around, it's kind of competition time and time to shoot a score. The Tuesday, Wednesday would be the technical. Like I sent Derek Ingram a few videos today. I generally have been kind of working on the same things, but that's when you're going to get in your drills, your block practice, your games, all the boring stuff. But everything behind the scenes that prepares you for Sunday afternoon.
You mentioned Derek Ingram, another great Winnipeg guy that has been very good to us over the years. Obviously, you're separated by quite a bit, but how does it work when you guys are so far away? And just how helpful has Derek been in helping you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, he's been very helpful. Since I started working with him, my results have improved slowly every year. Probably 3-4 years together now. But we're not. I thought I traveled a lot. He travels way more than me. So it's a lot of a phone call, a voice note, a video. He's going to be at the Canadian Open next week, so I'll see him there. And then he's going to be over at the Scottish Open later this summer, so I'll see him there. So we'll get in some work together in person and some sessions at Elmhurst in the summer, but a lot of videos.
Aaron, you mentioned next week, Canadian Open. You're back in it, teeing it up on the PGA Tour. You were there last year. A little bit of a different travel day on Monday than normally on the DP Tour, and probably a very exciting flight for you and the fam.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Hamilton is supposed to be an awesome golf course. My manager lives 10 minutes from the course. We got a house right next to the course. My family's coming, lots of friends. Going to be a very fun week.
What did you learn last year from being in the event? I mean, you played in some big Canadian events beforehand, but you're rubbing shoulders with the McIlroys of the world, and doing it in an event that a good result could be life changing.
Yeah. I've played the last 2 years. I mean, it's not, there's nothing massively different. We have some big events on our tour. It's very similar to one of those. I would say that the top 1% of PGA Tour players, the Rorys, the Justin Thomases, those guys are very, very good. From player 20 down, I don't think there's a massive difference. I feel like I can play with any one of those guys. So I think it's maybe a bit of a confidence boost, but yeah, those top guys are pretty good.
How long did it take to learn that? Because I imagine every time you get to a new tour, you're sort of feeling like you're climbing a brand new hill right from the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, first time playing like Irish Open last year, and I was hitting balls beside Rory, and his 3-wood was looking a little different than my 3-wood, but I don't think there's many guys that can hit some of the shots that he can hit, but even talking with Derek, that was one comment he had, is that the very elite guys are elite, but there's not that many of them. And week in, week out, the middle of the run guys is anyone can win, right? That's in a 156-man field. That's where you get so many good stories in golf. And in 4 rounds, you could have anything that could happen.
You know, I'm sure be a little rowdy at times. They'll have the rink hole set up as they've been kind of growing the last few years. But how different is it, just atmosphere-wise, teeing it up here in North America at an event like the Canadian Open as opposed to what you're seeing every week on the DP Tour? I mean, I think of European fans, certainly when it comes to things like soccer and just about everything, I mean, they're wired a little differently. Certainly, I mean, having been to a couple Ryder Cups, I mean, the golf fans over there, they're cut from a different cloth than the ones over here on this side of the world.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what country you're in. You know, if we go play the Irish Open and you hit a 7-iron to the middle of the green with a tough pin, they'll appreciate that was a good shot, or a lag putt from 50 feet, you leg it up there to tap in. Whereas, you know, next week you might get more of the mashed potatoes or the, you know, guys just chugging beers and hoping for a lot of backspin. I think they'll probably be a little bit more rowdy next week. That'd be my guess.
The mashed potatoes guy doesn't show up at the Qatar Open?
No. That's a hard no on that one.
Definitely. Aaron, this has been great. So you're going to get back here later on. Imagine getting back in the summer must be great. You actually get a chance to tee it up with some of your buddies, work on the game, because this season continues, I mean, right through until, well, you mentioned a wraparound season. I mean, when is the finale? Kind of November or so?
Yeah, our playoff events are at the start to middle of November. We actually have a bit of a gap in the summer, so I'll be at home in August, which is a great time to be home. And a lot of our tournaments that I play are kind of from that November to March timeframe in you know, the Middle East and Africas and stuff like that. And it'll be a good time to come home in the summer and play some golf with some friends and just do some fun stuff away from the course as well.
Well, listen, I mean, hopefully we'll see some great results in Belgium and then at the Canadian Open. What happens after the Canadian Open before you get back into Winnipeg?
After Canadian Open, I'm playing in a qualifier to get into the U.S. Open on the Monday, just outside of Hamilton. And then I'm going to go back to Winnipeg for a few weeks, recharge, and then I'm doing a stint over back in Europe after that, where I'll be gone for 3-4 weeks. And Scottish Open is at the end of that, which is a big one. And then I'm doing another qualifier to try and get myself into the British Open in England. So plenty of golf and plenty of different places still.
I guess that's the next immediate goal. Try and earn yourself the opportunity to tee it up into the major. For the U.S. Open, I mean, do you get advanced to the final round of qualifying because of playing on the DP World Tour?
Yeah, because of world ranking, I get to go to the final qualifier. So I've heard there's generally 40 guys for 2-3 spots or something like that. And you'll get a handful of PGA Tour players because it's after a PGA Tour event. Yeah, I've played the course before there, and yeah, that's kind of the next step, you know, in my career, I suppose, is trying to get into some of these majors now.
And then what about the Open qualifying? How does that work for players on the DP?
Similar idea. So generally there would be a first, you know, qualifier, final qualifier, but I can bypass the first one. And I think the one that I'm signed up for, there's generally 60, 70 guys for 5 spots there. So you have one good day, 36 holes, you're into the British Open.
Listen, we'll be following that and keeping people up to date on how you're doing in that in the U.S. Open qualifying. But first, it's Belgium. Next week, though, the big one, the Canadian Open there in Southern Ontario. How many? How deep will you be rolling with friends and associates and people in your circle be out? I imagine this is probably the best opportunity that a lot of people in your life can see you all season long.
Yeah, I think I might have like 15, 20 friends and family making the trip out. And the nice thing about that tournament is there's so much going on outside of the golf. They have concerts. You're close to Toronto. There's baseball games. So if they don't want to watch golf, if that's not their thing, there's plenty of other stuff to do. But it's going to be a nice little crowd, and it's my dad's birthday that week. There's lots of fun stuff going on.
Beautiful. And you can bring your daughter back home, although she may have no idea where she is, considering the whirlwind where she's been so far. Listen, good luck this week and next week. Let's get 4 great rounds and carry that Open into a great U.S. Open qualifying, Aaron. We'll continue to follow your career. Really appreciate you jumping on with us. And I know the folks at Princess Auto are real proud of what you guys have been doing so far this year. So keep it going, and best of luck over the next 2 weeks, but especially next week back on home turf.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones, the ones who work hard and show up for others not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right. Thanks a lot to Aaron Cockerill. Wishing him luck in Belgium this week and next week's Canadian Open. Great time for golf fans. And as he mentioned, he will be trying to qualify as well for the U.S. Open. Wouldn't that be awesome if some of the Manitoba guys could get into that big one? He's done a lot on the European Tour. Have a chance to tee it up again on the PGA Tour, and then the next level, the best of the best at the major championships. Again, shout out to our friends at Little Brown Jug. Looking forward to having a Little Brown Jug with all of you at the ballpark on June 18th. If you joined us late, gang, Goldeyes season began yesterday at home. Big win for the Fish. Great fireworks show at the end of the game as well. But the WST patio party at the Goldeyes game is coming up on Tuesday, June 18th. I think already, just since we started the show, we've had like 20 tickets sold already. The tickets are $20 all in. You'll get a WST koozie as well. We're making some of those for just in time for the event. And we're going to be doing it in the brand new left field patio with pub-style tables and chairs. We've got a capacity of 90 for this event. And as I mentioned, we had such a great turnout last year for the Goldeyes game. I imagine we'll be able to get there. So count yourself in. Canvass your crew. Who wants to come? And go over to winnipegsportstalk.com/store. Check and reserve your tickets. We've also got a link right here in the YouTube for today. It's right at the top. And if you're watching this later on, it is in the description. So Tuesday, June 18th, let's do it. We'll see you there at the WST patio party at the brand new left field patio, conveniently located right by Craft Beer Corner. Cannot wait for that. Goldeyes continue their season opening homestand tonight and tomorrow, as well as on the weekend at Blue Cross Park, 6:30. First pitch tonight. Tickets available at goldeyes.com, or pop down and see them at the door. Of course, ASD got underway this week. Now, normally there would be live racing on Wednesday. For the first 2 weeks of the season, there isn't. But in 2 weeks, it'll go Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Big win for the Huss last night in day one. We had doubled it up because, of course, we didn't have a show on Monday. Got a nice little lead on Remis after a couple winners, and my first two bets of the year came through, which was very nice. Go to asdowns.com for more information on everything going on at the track, as well as some of the amazing other events on the weekend, including a Rib Fest event that I'm quite intrigued about. And if you can, I'm actually going with my folks next week to the clubhouse dining room for that amazing buffet. I highly recommend that as well. If you are going out for a live racing, you got to make arrangements or reservation in advance for that at 885-3000. And again, all the information there at asdowns.com. Just before we bring in Joey Slattery, a big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club. Of course, the gang at Canadian Club's been on board with us for a few years, as well as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the official spirit of the blue and gold. So next Friday, or a week Friday, Bombers preseason game, back at it before we even get to June. And then the following Friday, June 6th, the home opener for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We'll see you around the Rum Hut. CC and Ginger's available. Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, powering Bomber fans to continue to be the best fans in the Canadian Football League. And of course, when you think whiskey, think Canada's finest, Canadian Club. Pick it up in all the Canadian Club products at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart. So next Friday is the Bomber opener for the exhibition. The following Friday is the Bomber home opener. This Friday, though, is the opener for the Winnipeg Sea-Bears. Sea-Bears are playing tonight in Saskatchewan to begin their season. We'll let you know how that's looking in the Coolbet lines in a minute. But just to get ready for tonight and Sea-Bears season, let's bring in the Slat man, Joey Slattery on WST. Slats, great to have you back on the program. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Always a pleasure to be here, Hustler, especially when basketball season's finally among us.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it was a slow night for playoffs last night. No hockey. I was paying attention to a little bit of the NBA, but I actually found myself watching the CEBL last night. Calgary and Edmonton kicking off the season, and another record-setting crowd for the league. Yeah. We're going to have to break it again later on this season, of course, here in Winnipeg. But heck of a start there in Calgary. Well, with the exception of the way the home team played, they got pumped by the Edmonton Stingers. But a great way to start this season for the CEBL.
Yeah, and I mean, the Stingers are no slouches, right? I mean, this is a team that has a knack for ruining big moments for home teams. Last year, they ended Winnipeg's hopes of getting the bye to the conference semifinals, only to come back 6 weeks later, or 6 days later, rather, and then eliminate them in front of that then record crowd, 10,500 plus fans at Canada Life Center. So Edmonton has a bit of experience in that realm, but you're right. I mean, this is huge for the league, right? And I think Winnipeg had a huge impact on that. And when I say that is because I think playing at Canada Life Center opened up maybe the idea that, hey, maybe our ceiling isn't the lower capacities at these mid-size arenas, right? Edmonton, for instance, plays at their Expo Center. I think it seats about 5,000 people. And the Surge play where Hockey Canada has their headquarters, which is also just a few thousand people. So, I think Winnipeg really blew the door open on that if you open it up and you make the seats available, people will fill them. And, Calgary worked hard. I'll give them credit. The Surge team really worked all, off season, really pushing this opening night at the Saddle Dome and ensured it was a success. And from the looks of it, it was. Yeah, they didn't get the win, but I don't think many people walked out of there thinking, oh, what a bummer. Early in the season, plenty of time to bounce back, but that looked like a heck of a good time.
Listen, I would imagine that much like last year here in Winnipeg, albeit our first season in the league, there was a lot of that 12-6 in the Dome that hadn't seen the CEBL product before. And you just need to go to a game to kind of see what you've been missing and check it out. And to your point about Winnipeg, I don't think there's any doubt at all that the success of the Seabears last year playing downtown in the big rink opened eyes around the league. We had Mike Morreale on the commissioner of the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and he talked about, the Winnipeg effect of what other teams were seeing, what was possible in other markets. And I think it's really emboldened the league. And listen, what is good for the league is good for all of the teams, and certainly for the players. We got to wait a couple days to get going here in Winnipeg. The game is already sold out. So a good reminder for folks to get their tickets for other games as we move forward. But this has been a real fun offseason, and we've had a number of chats with a number of the new players coming in. And listen, I guess we'll see what happens on the court tonight and Friday and the rest of the season. But this looks like quite a squad that Mike Taylor's put together, Joey.
Oh, I mean, it is. And I remember last year him saying how hard it was to kind of sell the dream, the idea of Winnipeg, right? There was really nothing tangible to show them of what it would be like. And there was a lot of, I guess, not concern, but there really was that question mark of, will people come out and support? Is this going to be a big thing, or is this something that'll just kind of float along and, kind of fall under the professional realm or the professional line in terms of attendance that we see in Winnipeg? But I remember Mike Morreale, to speak to your point, coming into the arena where he was saying that Edmonton was kind of the gold standard of what the CEBL wants to achieve, and then walking out of the building and being like, no, this is the new standard. We want to see more people in seats. But this year, Mike Taylor had a much easier time recruiting players, and he said he was going to focus on the Canadian contingent, and he did just that, bringing in a number of really good Canadians, particularly when it comes to the guards. I mean, everybody's going to be excited to see Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson play this year. I mean, he's a local kid. And not only is he a local kid, I mean, he played his high school ball here. He's an undersized guard who worked his tail off to get an opportunity to play, in university, where he played at Calgary, and he's been playing overseas for nearly a decade. This is his first time playing professional basketball in Winnipeg. And I think a lot of people, if you saw him play in high school, you might have an idea, but it's been years since a lot of people, even who know him, have seen him play. and he is something special. I mean, I got to see him throughout training camp, and talking to some of the guards there, they're saying this is a guy that is pulling off moves at speeds they've not seen before. Right. So, I mean, this guy might be flying under the radar to start the season as an early candidate for the CEBL Canadian Player of the Year. So this is a guy that has something to prove. He's excited to play in front of friends and family. But then they add some experience, with Mason Bercier, who's a kid that's mature beyond his years. I say a kid, a young man, but mature beyond his years, real hard worker. And the one thing I noticed at training camp this year, Hustler, is the experience. It's just a little bit more mature in that gymnasium, when they're practicing. They brought in some NBA talent. I mean, at the beginning of the offseason, we're talking about all these great Canadian guards they bring in, wondering, what does Mike Taylor have up his sleeve for the Americans, and what is he going to do about the front court? Well, then he brings in NBA experience, a guy like Darius Days, who I think is going to be a fan favorite of people here as the season goes on. He's playing in the G League. He's a star out there. He's got some experience playing with the Houston Rockets, but the big one being Byron Mullins. I mean that figuratively and literally. He's 7 feet tall. He was a former first-round NBA draft pick, and he was a starter for, I think, 66 of the near 200 games he played in the NBA with Charlotte. That was the first 5 years of his career, and then the next 5 he's been playing overseas. But this is a guy that can shoot the three, too. You think 7-footer, he's going to be planting himself in the lower block and looking for rebounds. He can protect the rim, but he can step out. And I think the most exciting part is we have Teddy Allen back, the reigning CEBL MVP, and it's going to be a lot easier for him to get his shots. Last year, he did a lot of that work alone. Big question is, though, Hustler, will he have that? Will that be an advantage for him? Because he's a guy that does create his own shots. So not to say that there's, big things to look at negatively on the Sea Bears, but if you have to pinpoint one thing that might be, oversold, is just how is he going to adapt having more talent around him and maybe less touches?
Yeah, never a bad problem to have more talent on a team. I mean, it is a team game, and Teddy did it on his own in many games last year. But I don't think anyone's going to be upset that he's got more of a supporting cast this year to hopefully take them to the next level. Wanted to ask you about Alex Campbell. We had him on the show. He was just a great interview. Seemed to be very excited to come here. Like many of the players that saw what was happening in Winnipeg from the other side of the court last year, and joining the team with the best fan support in the league.
Yeah, well, Alex Campbell, so we talk about the experienced guards, and I feel bad for not throwing his name out there because he's one of the biggest experienced guards that were brought in. Not only is he Canadian, but he's a defensive specialist and he can shoot the 3-ball, but he's also a coach. I mean, he's a guy that in the CEBL offseason lives in Saskatoon. So tonight he's playing in front of family and friends, where he's the assistant coach at the University of Saskatchewan. So he'll have a nice kind of home feeling contingent there tonight. But he also has experience with Mike Taylor, right? He played for Mike Taylor in Vancouver. So I think last year was kind of going back to what was familiar. I know he was familiar with Kyle Julius, but then when you see what Winnipeg was able to achieve, and then when Mike Taylor's able to say, well, you saw what Teddy Allen did last year, he's coming back. How do you complement that? How does that open up things for you? And you have an opportunity to win another championship. He won one with the Rattlers back in 2019. So yeah, this is a guy that brings a few things. He brings the talent on the court, but for the younger guys on the team, he brings a nice kind of coach on the floor kind of element to this game as well. So you think of the Simon Hildebrands, the Sean Morannins, the Darren Wattses, he plays for the University of Manitoba. He walked on to the roster, bumping out Tyler Hagel from the roster. He was a second-round draft pick this year, and he played last year. So there's some young guys here that play in Winnipeg that will benefit from that, having a guy that's done the professional rounds. He's a coach at the U Sports level. So the younger players have a huge advantage this year with the amount of experience they get to pick from, as opposed to last year where they did have some pro experience, but a lot of those guys were early in their pro careers. There's a lot more veterans around here, Alex Campbell being one of the more important ones.
Tell us more about Watts, because, I mean, even as I bring up the Sea Bears roster right now, Sagel's still on it.
He is, and he's on the practice roster. So when they bumped him down to the practice roster, usually you'd think, right, like kind of like the NHL, a higher round draft pick you would think is going to have a better chance at making the team, right, regardless of whether or not he'll get the playing time. And he was dressed for the last year for a lot of the season, Tyler was, but Darren Watts, man, like this guy, watching him play at the U Sports level this year, and I caught all the Bison's home games. I saw him play in the Canada West Championships. he was the player of the year for the Bisons. Like, he won that team award this year because he just elevated his game like crazy at the U Sports level. So I wasn't surprised to see him getting the opportunity to try out for the Sea Bears. I had assumed he would be on the practice roster. And to be fair, he might be the one that's bumped off the roster once David Mwenkat gets in here. He was signed. He played with Scarborough last year. He's out in Germany finishing off his season. But regardless, he's on the roster for opening night. And it's really nice to see, because watching that guy in training camp, he really gave some professionals a hard time. Like, he's a guy that was, on the practice roster guarding Teddy Allen, getting Teddy frustrated in practice because he's having a hard time getting his shots. This is a U Sports kid giving a well-known MVP caliber and the reigning MVP a hard time in practice. And that was something that impressed Mike Taylor when I was talking to him yesterday before they took off for Saskatoon. He said that is something that's a real highlight for a coach, when you can see a kid step in and start making professionals feel uneasy and frustrated. That's a good sign. So Darrin Watts is a real feel-good story here. And, I call it a surprise. And, I don't mean that in the sense that it comes down as condescending or any kind of blow to him. It's just, usually when you're walking on, you were not drafted. You were overlooked in the draft, and then you walk on, and then you get a spot on the team on the opening night. Whether or not he plays, well, that remains to be seen, but he's on the roster, and that's a huge boost for him. It's a big, a nice highlight for the Bisons program as well. And I think he's earned the respect of those guys in the locker room. He doesn't say a lot. He's very quiet, but he's a work hard guy. Like, you see him in practice, he's nonstop, and it's going to be the same in games if he gets a chance to play. But what a feel-good story for Watts and for Winnipeg basketball as a whole.
Well, no doubt about it. Another tip of the cap to the players that, both the U of M and U of W are producing. And, of course, 3 familiar local faces on this team. Of course, Big Chad Posthumous was the first player signed, and, was really, in a lot of ways, sort of the face of the franchise heading into year one. But Simon Hildebrand had a monster season, a few big moments last year, including game-winning buckets. And he's now joined by Sean Moranin, who was sort of on the practice roster last year, officially drafted this year. And I see Moranin ready to go as well. Just a quick comment on the rest of the local component of the 24 Sea Bears.
Well, the interesting thing, I'll start with Hildebrand, is just how does his role change, right? Because last year he was elevated, I think, a little sooner than we thought. He got into the game early in that opener and then proved himself that he's able to, hang with the pros. And he had a really good season. He's the reigning CEBL U Sports Player of the Year, but a lot more experience now. Guys like making room for guys like Darius Days. And there are some bigger guys if they want to go with a bigger lineup with, Chad and Byron for rim protection. So it'll be interesting to see how. I think he'll still be an impact player. I just don't know how his playing time will be adjusted. Sean Moranin's a perfect example of what you can do when you walk on, kind of setting up the stage for Watts. He didn't get to play last year, but that was a big reason why they drafted him this year, was how impressive he was last year, showing up to every practice and giving it his all. Then you parlay that with a great season at the U Sports level. So a bit of a no-brainer in that sense. What I'm most excited to see is if he does get on the court, how much we don't know about Sean Moranin and his abilities, because now you're playing with pros. As a point guard, I think that's a huge advantage because you have more confidence throwing balls into, more difficult passes with the confidence that a professional might get to it. Even playing with a 7-footer, you can draw that double team and just kind of throw it up near the rim, and someone's going to probably throw it down. And that's not a luxury you get at the U Sports level. So if he gets on, I'm really interested to see how Sean Moranin will take that opportunity. And of course, Chad's just a staple, right? Here's a guy that works hard, big body, and is going to have a little bit of help in that sense because he's got some other bigger bodies around him. So we might not see him having to play too many minutes. They can use him selectively and make sure that they're getting the best out of Chad.
Well, and listen, you mentioned him already, but I mean, the signing of Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson to come back home, play in front of friends and family. This isn't just a local player. This is a guy that, from talking to a lot of people in the basketball community, the most decorated Winnipeg professional since Todd McCullough, which is pretty high praise with the amount of players that have come out of this province that have gone to, earn a paycheck playing the game around the world. Yeah. And funny enough, we talk about, friends and family being out. He said it to us when he was on us, but I met up with Jason Smith, who runs the Sea Bears, a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking about the upcoming season, and I asked how the phone lines were after Jared signed, and I think they might have done another 100 season tickets just that day from literally friends and family of Ogunbemi Jackson. So he'll be a big part, and he brings a whole nother level, both of, connection to the community, but also a level of play, having played in all those leagues around the world and just playing in that Russian league, which, has teams in the Champions League.
Well, exactly, right? Because they're part of the Euro League too, and before the sanctions came in. But no, we're talking about like a stellar player, regardless of hometown. This isn't just, a flyer on a kid from Winnipeg. No, they might have actually signed the best Canadian guard who's relatively unknown in Canada, which, kind of speaks to the importance of this league. Now we're starting to know the homegrown talent. And I think he's poised to have a coming out party if all goes well, where he's going to introduce himself to a lot of Winnipeg fans who did not see him or did not know who he was prior to him leaving for his professional career. And I think the league is going to be put on notice as well of just how good a guard he is. And you know what? You talk about Todd McCulloch. After seeing Jared play a little bit, I'm 6 feet tall, just a shade above 6 feet. He's shorter than me. I imagine if that guy had a little more height, he would have been immediately highlighted. But I think he's been overlooked a lot because he's undersized, and he's proven that it does not matter. I mean, here's a guy that, again, can create for others, create for himself. He's lightning quick. And I'm excited to see what comes for him because he's still young. I think he's only 32 years old. He's got some tread on his career. Who's going to come knocking for an opportunity for him in North America? I wonder if a G League becomes an opportunity for him, and who knows where that can lead from there, right? So my eyes are actually on Jared Ogunbemi Jackson to have the biggest impact on the Seabears this year and probably have be the biggest surprise of the league outside of Winnipeg, that is, just because he's got that potential to explode.
Well, listen, Slats, I can't wait to talk Seabears with you on the show throughout the year. Of course, we've also, speaking of Canada basketball, we've got the Olympics to get ready for in Paris later on this summer, which is going to be very exciting for Canadian hoops fans. But for the meantime, we'll get ready for Friday night down at Canada Life Center. Hey, for folks that want more on the Seabears, fill people in on what you're doing with the Target Score Weekly.
Yeah, so Target Score Weekly still out there on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts with Taylor Allen, who works for the Free Press. We just actually put out the season preview episode today with play-by-play Christian O'Mell and Dave Larkins, who works for the Winnipeg Westmen, but is a basketball coach and a basketball savant, at least self-proclaimed, but really knowledgeable guest and had a lot of great insights. So check that out. I'm also, check me out on Instagram at Joey Slattery TV. I've been putting out reports throughout training camp. I have a game day report that'll be out today, and I'll be following along all season. So you follow along there, and there will be a post game show coming as well, a live post game show for the Seabears. So after the game, you can get all the insight. Emily Potter will be involved. Speaking to the Olympics, she's out with the national team training right now, so she'll be back on time for that. But a lot of exciting stuff. But just be sure to be following Target Score Weekly or wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, and myself, Joey Slattery TV on Instagram, to follow along with the reports and all the coverage for the Seabears throughout the season.
Slats, let's get after it. We'll see you Friday night down at Canada Life Center. Thanks for doing this.
Always appreciate it, Hustler. We'll see you there.
All right, good stuff with Joey Slats. Great to have him on. Seabears begin tonight, which takes us to tonight's Coolbet lines. And yes, the CEBL is listed at Coolbet tonight. The Seabears are 3-point road favorites over the Saskatchewan Rattlers. Minus 169 on the money line for Winnipeg, plus 125 for Saskatchewan. I have made my first CEBL wager of the year. Seabears minus 3. 2 other games tonight in the league. But they also have the outrights. And just to give you an idea about what people expect from the Seabears this year, Winnipeg is the second favorite to win the CEBL championship. The Niagara River Lions are the first team at plus 325, and then you have Winnipeg plus 375. So I also put a little sprinkle on the Seabears to win the whole thing. And I mean, just based on the odds, Seabears laying 3 against a team that is dead last in the league when it comes to championship odds at 22-1. I will take it. So good luck to the Seabears. And if you do want to sprinkle on that, you can do it over at coolbet.com. NHL playoffs tonight. Pick 'em between the Panthers and Rangers. I'm going to roll Rangers minus 108. And the Rangers, by the way, on the series, if you want to get in on that, Rangers plus 125. The Panthers minus 152. We do have a couple exclusives. The Lock Shop Partner Parlay. I think both of these series go 6 or more. I think we'll get a Game 7. We've got 2-1 on over 12.5 total games combined in the conference finals. So if you want to jump on that, it is there. And then we always have some great exclusives for the PGA Tour. The Lock Shop Partner Parlay. There's a couple of them. Tony Finau, Detry, and Harmon all to get in the top 20. That is 20-1. And then we've got one for tomorrow, which is just 3 matchups. Hubbard over Gim, Detry over Davis Thompson, Spieth over Kirk. That is 6-1. Check that in the Charles Schwab Challenge specials over at Coolbet. As far as Major League Baseball goes tonight, it is getaway day. My Royals are good this year. This is a very, very nice change. And the Blue Jays, listen, they were a big favorite last night. They didn't win. Big favorite again tonight at -244. At home against the Chicago White Sox. We do have one NBA game tonight. Game 1 between the Mavs and the T-Wolves in the Twin Cities. Minnesota, -189 favorite in that one. And what are the T-Wolves to win the series? T-Wolves are -179 to win. So, man, Minnesota, big favorite to get to their first NBA championship. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Went long today, had a lot to get in. And we've already had a great response for the WST patio party at the Goldeyes game on June 18th.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. We did this last year. I looked it up. We sold 90 tickets last year. And this year, we're capped at 90. We're on a special patio deck. Last year, we kind of were just in the left field, but they had 5,000 people for the opener yesterday. So I think the Goldeyes, man, they're going to be a way better team this year than last year. I'm excited about the new manager, Logan Watkins, and the talent that he's brought in. But this is going to be fun, so we're going to keep promoting it. Link in the description. It's on our website, on our socials, winnipegsportstalk.com at the top. Plenty of ways to take you to the same place, our website, to get tickets. So I'm excited to meet everyone there and check out the stadium and check out the new scoreboard, the new patio deck, the new concessions house. I've been tipped off Bagelsmith new for this year at the Goldeyes Stadium.
Really?
Yeah, if you want some smoked meat and a ball game, that's on a bagel. Good time right there.
It sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. Could get behind that. Anytime there's a new concession, we have to go and try it. I mean, that goes without saying. So, well, tonight and tomorrow. In fact, maybe tomorrow we'll look and see if we can get the Cashman on, Andrew Collier, to just talk about the upcoming opening weekend. And as well, we're going to be one of the first groups to take in the big party deck, the patio party. So I can't wait for that. Again, link in the description, winnipegsports.com/store. Get your tickets now before we sell out, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. That is going to do it for us, gang. Tomorrow on the program, well, we'll do the wellness check on Ken. Mike had mentioned that he did not play very well yesterday, and when Ken does not golf well, he wears it. So hopefully he played today and had a much better round, and he'll be in good spirits tomorrow. But we'll have Kenny on the program. We'll let you know how the Seabears did tonight. Get ready for the home opener. Hoping to have Coach Mike Taylor join us as well. So a big, big show tomorrow. Do not miss it. We'll see you live at 1 p.m. on YouTube. And, of course, just a little later on in the podcast feed for all of you podcast listeners. Huge thanks to all of our sponsors for making this show happen each and every day. And all of you for making us a part of yours. Have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.